What is up, my friends? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analysts you could find over at MMA Junkie, as well as some work on the ActionNetwork.com. But on this here program and on this channel, thank you for liking and subscribing below, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight because it's going to be a slightly early start time for UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi. And as per usual with the pay-per-views, I always have a guest for at least a recap or a breakdown, if not both last time. And it's, people from the betting community. I've had coaches. And now I want to touch on, someone that's awesome, and you're going to love here in a second. But it's an area that he specializes in that I admittedly have been bad about. That's right, folks. That's fantasy MMA. So we're gonna be breaking down some NCAA wrestling qualifiers, so I want to make sure I bring on a 7-time DraftKings DK qualifier. That's my man Sean. You might know him at Sniper_MMA. That's the handle you see below. Make sure you follow him there. What's up, Sean? Thanks for joining me, bud.
Thanks for having me, man, and especially thanks to getting more of the fantasy content. DraftKings, FanDuel, some more representation in kind of the mainstream MMA media. Now, DraftKings UFC sponsor got a bump. Now we got to get all you media guys to get on board and play some DraftKings with us.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. You got a great community and family there. You got a shout, of course, from my guy who I'll parlay a shout onto a shout. My guy Kyle Marley at Big Marley. Of course, I was on his channel chopping up some fights with him. And you guys, you fantasy players, DFS Army, all the clicks, however you want to put it. You guys got a nice tight knit group over there, and man. All my interactions have been good with you. You get respect amongst your peers, so I appreciate you coming onto my show to kind of help us get through this breakdown today.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and I guess I'll do my quick plug here for all my plays, breakdowns, all that stuff. My stuff now is at MMAplay365.com. Newsom over there does a great job in the betting stuff. I take care of the DFS, so make sure you subscribe to both packages. But I guess for right now, mine, we do $5 an event, $10 a month, cheap, and we get you set up with, if you want to attack those big money tournaments, you want to play some cash games, we got strategies for all that stuff. I got some other guys doing rankings with me, kind of doing the DFS community. I got RBQs and Magic Mike DFS, and some of your fantasy players might know them. We all kind of come together and give us rankings, breakdowns, all that good stuff, and I'll try and sprinkle in some of it. I don't want to go too fantasy crazy because it is a nice change of pace for me, but I will definitely sprinkle it in along the way.
Well, no pressure, and fair warning, I may throw some questions along the way because again, I'm curious, and I feel like that's the best kind of way for the audience to sometimes know too, because a lot of them, I imagine, either haven't played or maybe they played like myself but haven't played in a while, or their understanding is what's a polite word, novice, or what's a polite, you get what I'm trying to say there, we could use a little more.
Beginner.
Yeah,
novice, beginner, and I'll go one step further. I gotta shout out my guys at Verdict who are putting a little bit of a different game out there. It's brand new. I'm playing it this week. It's DraftKings is more salary based, and Verdict is really just pick some fights, pick what do you think is going to happen? Decision, method of victory, and around if I'm picking a stoppage. And they have a whole formula that I don't understand, but it assigns points, and most points win. So you got kind of both ways out there. I think that's going to get really popular. It's kind of like a bridge into DraftKings when you start dealing with all the salary stuff.
Absolutely, and if there's any games or particular games you want to recommend, whether it's stuff you're playing yourself or you just recommend for people at certain levels, feel free to shout those out for you normal people, normal gamble talk people or whatever. For this podcast, what is deemed as normal. Don't worry, you're going to get that too. And of course, as speaking of normal and formats, our normal format is still in place. First, before we get to UFC 280, check the timestamps if you're listening to this in the future, you want to jump ahead, you can always check those show notes, which are down below if you're listening the audio version here on YouTube. That's, of course, Daniel Tom, MMA. Like and subscribe below, or Apple Podcasts, of course. The 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated for the Protect Your Neck podcast. There's always show notes where I timestamp there as well, at least for when we start from top to bottom. I know it gets crazy with the chat. Uh, Here we go. I'm going to be sharing out a link here, and then we're actually going to get going. And I'm seeing the excited for us to be breaking down this card. Well, I appreciate that. I know I'm excited. I got my guy Alvin Yakatori in the chat. I'm going to be putting you guys up properly. Again, just forgive me kind of doing double producing duties. But as we get into UFC Vegas 62, let me ask you, Sean, what did you think about the card? We're going to talk about the fights in not too long, but was this a card that was even on your radar? I know it got a lot of flack going in as far as this looks like one you could miss. With your grind, obviously you don't really miss these. What did you think of the card?
I think this is whenever people give cards flack leading into it, I usually get excited because they tend to be the cards that deliver. It's kind of that stereotype that it's been around and it seems to happen time and time again. We'll go through the fights, but there were plenty of big finishes, plenty of really fun fights, I thought. The main event, I had question marks with in terms of being the main event, but with the fight cancellation, I mean, the fight we all wanted to be the main event, thank God that wasn't. That could have been a whole other issue. So I like these type of cards. I think the prelims, I do think the prelims were a little underwhelming, but I did enjoy the main card.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. You're right, man. The card we were looking forward to most, of course, the fight we were looking forward to most, of course, my guy Sean was referring to is Askar Askarov versus Brandon Royval. I didn't feel too confident in that one. Did you have a lean on that one? Not that it matters now, of course, but
I actually favored Askarov just because, and I'll mention here, when somebody's only path to victory I feel like is a submission, I get really sketched out in those fights. For what, like, when I feel like you need a submission to win, I'm usually not going to lean your way. And then I was actually, Brandon Royval, one of those guys who's active on Twitter. He was then saying, okay, well, I'm the number 3 guy now. Let me get my rematch against Pantoja. And I was like, why do you get yours when Kai Kara France should probably get his against you? That makes more. At this point, I know I'm going off the Pantoja needs to just wait. Don't go Joanne Wood on me. Just wait. Just wait. And then I want to see Kai Kara France and Brandon Royval. I guess it's 2, right?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think I begrudgingly picked Askarov there to win because I do love Royval's style, but got to break these down as unbiasedly as I can. So the quick recap is we in this program, as far as when I say we went 10-1 overall in picks, 1-0 in straight plays, 3-0 in props, 0-1 in a round flyer, 3 out of 4 in round robin, which still produces profit, so we're fine with that. And of course, 3 out of 4 is just short of the long shot parlay, which I parlay all 4 of those round robin selections, which is kind of how I do it. So of course that went 0 for 1 because we missed just 1, which we'll talk about. Very, very close. Definitely not going to cry over spilt milk though. It was a winning night, and in this game, you can have all your ducks in a row and still lose your ass off, right? So believe me, I'm not complaining here, but we will recap the action as it is posted. At Dan Tom MMA, of course, is my underscore. So what you're looking at Sniper underscore MMA, that's our Twitter handles. That's I don't know if that's where Sean's most active. It's where I'm most active. So feel free to follow us there as well, folks. All right. So from the top, we had, of course, Alexa Grasso defeated Viviane Araújo. I don't blame anybody who took underdog shots here on the dog. WMMA dogs feel like they've been a thing. So far be it from me to have hindsight 2020. But I did have Grasso and Grasso by decision, which helped the winning night. So I definitely will take it. I was biased, but I had probably the more unfavorable scorecard to some, 50-45. But I say that knowing very well that at least 2 of those rounds could have easily been scored for Araújo, and I would have no issue for that. This is just what I particularly saw. Of course, the judges, they have different views than us. They see different things. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but regardless on nitpicking the scorecard, I feel like they got the winner right. Any thoughts on that one, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely got, as somebody who did pick Araújo, they got the winner right. Grasso won the fight. I was screaming at Araújo to get more active with the grappling early, and it was a clear case of gas tank conservation. I thought, the way I picked the fight, I did have a close leading into it, I thought it would be 48-47 Araújo with Grasso taking over down the stretch and me having to sweat one out, but she conserved and played a little too safe. Something you have to work on, Brock. So you know how good she is. It wasn't a knock on her. Just thought the line was a little wide, and I could argue. I think I was right, even despite the scorecard. It was a very close fight. I think they both have things to improve on clearly, but it was fun, and they clearly got the winner right.
Yeah, and again, don't blame anybody who thought those dogs were barking. Shouts to Chronic Combat Conversations in the chat. Here for some dessert. UFC 280 has some dogs barking. I agree. I'm going to see if my guy Sean, Sniper MMA, agrees with me, but we're going to finish pushing through that card. And when they say dessert, that's kind of a reference for this year program. As some programs are my dessert, where especially if it's a breakdown show, I try to keep my filter clean, right, as clean as possible. I've seen some takes, but it's nothing I try to pick up as far as like consciously going out for. So I appreciate being a part of someone else's dessert list. That's an ultimate compliment. Thank you guys there. Next fight, Jonathan Martinez defeated Cub Swanson. I love Cub Swanson, so this hurt. This would have been a fight I almost wouldn't have mind being wrong on, which I have plenty of those. I have no problem in that. But I will say this was also a fight where the analysis paid off there. Again, I always say stats don't tell the story of the fight, and I keep that same energy even with my hipster southpaw-esque stats, right? You got Cub Swanson, who is 3-0 against, in the UFC against southpaws, 3-1 overall in his career. But it's tricky because fighters who weren't dedicated southpaws messed him up when switching to a southpaw stance, like Chikadze and Holloway. And looking at Swanson's style, I said his dipping and his propensity to dip and dart to his right is really bad against a southpaw power kicker who throws knees and obviously the power shots to the side he's darting into. And we kind of saw that. I also took a flyer on Martinez round one, which was the one round flyer that didn't hit. And I'm not going to cry over spilt milk on this one. It was like but it definitely could have been stopped, not just for my bet, but because then we had to see Cub Swanson just get dismantled from his legs up or his head down, however you want to put it. Of course, my guy Herb Dean there, you guys know that I'm always on the right side of his stoppages. But I'm not going to complain. We got the Martinez fight doesn't go the distance. That's what we were on, and we ended up cashing that. Do you have any thoughts going in or out of this one, Sean?
People are giving Herb a hard time about this. I actually think Herb got it right, and I am usually first to jump all over Herb. Like I have my issues, but I thought Brown was close enough. It's not like Cub was out. He was hurt. Mm-hmm. The referee hears the 10-second clapper. I think if that happens 5 seconds before, he stops it. But he hears the clapper. He knows it's coming. Right or wrong, I was fine with it. And then Cub gets his leg kicked out, and Martinez gets a couple shots off. And why didn't Herb stop it? Well, guys roll to their back and defend after being knocked down all the time. I think Herb was fine here. My ultimate takeaway was if you're ever around Jonathan Martinez or teammate Chris Gutierrez, just put on some leg pads and run, because those are scary. The two of them.
Yeah. I will say I don't think it was his worst one either. I think I stated that too off the top. And with my betting bias and as well as the Cub Swanson appreciation fandom bias, like there's probably a little bit of that in there too, right? And but at the same time, it's tough because I could see what Herb was doing. I think that in 2009 we would have been applauding him for that because he was giving a veteran his respect, but there's really a strong argument of he was doing the opposite of giving him his respect. Sometimes we think they're giving him their respect, and we like to go out on that. The fighter themselves, right? Because that machismo that a lot of us have inherently. But yeah, I get what he was doing. It definitely wasn't an atrocious stoppage. I will agree with you on that. But I will say that I don't know if he did do him any favors. When you look at how it went.
The one thing I forgot to mention is that everybody picking Cub, I got why, but you have to remember a veteran fighter dropping to 10 pounds, especially 45 to 30, like giant red flag should be going off immediately. I know it's Cub, I know he made it, but it's never good when it's when Frankie Edgar, it's never good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Edgar, he dropped. And the ones who have defied that trend, which I'm a fan of the old guys, by the way, like the Guido Canettis of the world, those guys have always fought at 135. So, yes, they're old, but they're not making any drastic moves, to your
No,
point,
you go
right?
down. Yeah.
Yes. So, and we'll talk about that later with a aged bantamweight who I may be siding with. But when he did go down, it wasn't very good, was it? We'll talk about that shortly here. Okay, next fight to kind of blow through the rest of this. Todorovic defeated Jordan Wright. This was the only other fight that I didn't cash on. I had the under 1.5 like everybody else. But I'm definitely not complaining about this one. Like, this wasn't a bad stoppage, or it could have been stopped, sure. It's just one of those things. Again, this is more MMA culture, right? This wasn't so much where I feel like you can throw anything at the ref here, even with the last one, right? And I think we both agree on that. But this is more the MMA culture, which I disagree with, and it shouldn't be this way. But it is, so I get it. That's why I'm not crying, which is, unfortunately, we have this culture where a fighter has to drop dead like a Family Guy episode for us to be like, oh, I think he's out. I'm going to call it. Like, I hate that. I think we should normalize more standing stoppages. And, if you just look at, it was stupid shots and they were slop. And, Todorovic wasn't doing him the best favor with body language either. So I get why it wasn't stopped. Again, I'm not crying over spilt milk here or anything like that. But it does, even throwing all the bets aside, folks, and all that bias that comes with it, right? It does make us ask as human beings, or at least I hope, can we normalize some standing stoppages a bit? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. Sean, any thoughts?
My hot take for this one is Jordan Wright. If you don't know, is not the hot take. Factual. Jordan Wright was cut, I believe.
Sure.
Right? Yep. He'll be back. I think he will, and I think that's a hot take. I think people are pretty down on him, and he's not very good. He looked good. He fixed the cardio. He's got the fun style. He'll cause problems in this weight class in the regional scene again. He's young. I think he'll be back in the UFC.
I agree that he has the talent, and I'm definitely rooting for him, and I'm not going to condemn that because I don't think that's the craziest take. He's young for all the reasons you said. I will say, though, if there is a psychological tie and more of a gas tank tie, I do wonder if that's almost more condemnable, though, Shouts to my guy Zane Simon. I was listening to him on the 6th-round post-fight, and he was saying, I forget the exact words, but he said, Todorovic looks like a guy who enjoys fighting even when he's getting beaten up, whereas Wright seems like a guy who enjoys fighting when he's doing the beating up, but when it comes time to take it, not as much. So I'm definitely not going to laud those accusations. I'm definitely going to root for him because he just seems like a really cool, likable dude, to be honest. But if I'm being honest, I do got to wonder that aloud a little bit. All right, next fight, Rafael Assunção defeated Victor Henry. This was the only fight I got wrong, and this is where bias is why you got to be honest with it. And it continues to mess with me, which is why I continue to be honest with it with my audience, because whether I'm right or wrong, I can at least protect my audience a bit. And I'm a big fan of, again, speaking of older bantamweights, I know he did used to fight at higher weight classes because he had to out of necessity, but to the Guido Canetti point, this is his home weight class, so there was no drastic change there. He was proven. I did stay off Victor Henry, thankfully, not trying to play that hindsight 2020 or rub it in if anybody did. But yeah, despite rooting for Rafi, despite having some of my coaches in his corner even, right? Dennis Davis and Eric Nixick. I'm trying to be as unbiased and as professional as I can be. You can never fully shake the bias, but it looks like I overcorrected the other way perhaps, right? And this should have been a spot where, especially those who know me, even without the extreme couture bias, Dan Tom loves the technical countering southpaws or stance switchers and older dudes that people are discounting. Like, this is me all day. I didn't take it, but I'll tell you what, I am happy to be wrong here. Did you have any strong feelings going into this fight? What were your thoughts going out of it, Sean?
Not really. Rafael Assunção is death to DFS. He scores those slow pace countering. I don't dislike him as a person. His fights are awful for DraftKings and fantasy in general. They just don't score well because his fights tend to be low output and they're the style he wants. But he was so cheap because he's such a big underdog. I did play a little bit of him. It's kind of, honestly, the fight I expected. Like, Victor Henry he was a 2-1 favorite in this fight, whereas his last fight where he was, a giant underdog against Raoni Barcelos, who, Barcelos, I hold in really high esteem, but it was a massive overcorrection in the line, and one I kind of feel like I should have saw. I didn't bet. I kind of just overall stay away.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't disagree with those notes. And to kind of build on to my guy Alvin Yakitori in the chat sharing some words of his as well, and saying about losses and to not discount that and the pain and hardship that a lot of these fighters have to go through. And boy, did you feel that when you saw the decision get announced, right? When you saw Hafi kind of go into tears. And I mean, regardless of which side you bet or were rooting for, I mean, how could you not feel for that guy? You really saw how much it meant to him, and it really ties in with the words that Alvin Yakitori, which you should be able to see the chat replay for those listening into the future. Appreciate those kind words, Alvin, and that kind of ties up that fight. But yeah, I was just really happy. The coaches felt good too. Was talking to the coaches about it, and not sharing too much out of school, but Rafael Sansao still kind of debating on whether or not to retire, and basically some advice he may or may not have gotten, and it might be advice that I agree with, is that if the UFC offers him some other bullshit matchup like this that was supposed to be on the prelims against some dude who's supposed to just wash out the old guy, tell him to kick rocks and retire on a win. But if they offer you a sensible matchup, like against a Frankie Edgar, like an older fighter, or some kind of fight that makes sense back home in Brazil that they're going back traveling, then go ahead. Otherwise, I would not be mad if he retired on this win. I totally get it, Hafi. I'll just say that. But all right, finishing up the main card, we had Alonzo Menafield defeated Misha Serkinov. Boy, that was picked Menafield by first round KO, and I was hoping I was wrong, but yeah, sure enough, that happened. And any thoughts on this one here, Sean?
Went exactly how I thought it was going to, and unfortunately, the way I think a lot of people did. Kind of a little bit sad to see with Misha, but I mean that was as close as we can get as the MMA community getting it totally right, because we all kind of saw the writing on the wall there. I think anyway.
Yep, absolutely. We saw that one going. Mana Martinez defeated Brandon Davis. Didn't watch this one too closely, although I was thinking that was Brandon Davis for some reason was a James Krause fighter, because like I was kind of half watching and I walked away from the screen at the end of the second round, and I heard him just going off on his fighter, and I was like, oh wait, he's cornering Mana. Mana just dropped him, but I don't know. I know Krause has been been getting a lot of talk from that and other things. So I'm definitely not trying to pile on. But boy, that fight was just kind of crazy and confusing to me. Ended up going to split decision. Were you watching this fight closely? Did the scores make sense to you? I'm not complaining. I just didn't watch much of it.
No, I watched. I can say I didn't watch it super intently. Other than I understand why James Krause was upset. I thought Brandon Davis fight. I thought Davis won. Now, I wasn't super locked in on, but I had 29-28 Davis. I get off just, but it was one of those I'm not going to cry robbery, which is way overused. Anyway, either way, any scorecard, one of those fights, any scorecard made sense to me. I think, how do I best describe this? I think using our 10-point must system, Davis won. I asked who did more damage in the fight overall. I had to look up the full 15 minutes. In totality, who won? I probably would have picked Mana Martinez. It was a super close fight. It was closer than I thought it was going to be. And using the 10-point must system, I had Davis 29-28.
You're not crazy there, because other people whose opinions I also respect also had the same scorecard as you. Citing criteria showing their work, so to speak. So you're definitely not crazy, and that's why I wanted to ask. What your opinion is on it. I got my guy James Kendrick in the chat. Man, Alvin sharing his positive message from the MMA Mania podcast to PYN. Gotta love it. I appreciate it. Dan is the man, and Alvin is the Prince of Positivity. I like that, the Prince of Positivity. Appreciate you guys there. All right, we got, finishing through this real quick, we got Jacob Malkoun defeated Nick Maximov. That cash, I'm glad I ended up pulling the trigger, because Malkoun was the only underdog that I ended up technically picking on this whole card. So if I didn't play him, what the heck am I doing with myself as a degenerate gambler, much less a gambler of any sort? So he cashed. I don't have much to say. I really wasn't watching it too close. I know Maximov got injured. And I will say...
Didn't matter.
Yeah, thank you. A, it didn't matter. And B, if anybody is getting some of those karmic points... Again, winning night, not complaining, a lot of great things to be grateful about in life, folks. I'm just saying, when it comes to these notable bad decisions from refs, or you think about bad decisions, I play this game with the audience, and I challenge them. It's open anytime, folks, in the chat. you post a really controversial card or a controversial non-stoppage call, I guarantee you I was on the wrong side and bet the thing on the wrong side. So it's just one of those kind of ongoing themes is why I mentioned that. And, of course, Nick Maximoff. Here's why I want a victory lap here for a second. He got a decision he should not have gotten against Puna Soriano. I'm sorry. Good for you if y'all cashed that. Anybody, I'm not coming at y'all. I'm just saying I'm calling the sky blue when it's blue, and he did not win that fight. I
cashed that.
Good for you. Good for you. I have friends who cashed it, but he did not win that fight if you're being honest with criteria to just common sense of a fight, going by any of those criterias or anywhere in between. Even the only acceptable time would have been 2007, and even then people would have been yelling lay and pray, and they wouldn't have been happy about it when those decisions were more acceptable. And aside from my bet, or your Puna is a Hawaiian from Extreme Couture, or it wasn't just a bet, but it was tied into a round robin, which would have 10x'd my profit. Those things are all very true, and I'm the first to admit those things. One of the few who consistently admit their bias, is in this space. But what I did say, Sean, is let's take all the betting stuff away, okay? This is, and you're a Maximoff fan. You bet him, and you're just like a legit fan. Like, you didn't just bet him, like, you were invested, you're in his career. That is the worst. I said it back then. That is the worst thing that can happen to Nick Maximoff is that he got that fight. Forget me. Forget my feelings and my bet. Who gives a fuck? Because really, who does? For him, it was the worst thing. And just like I got to hear everybody recycling my Charles Oliveira analysis that I've been shouting at everybody for the last 3 fights, or the last 2 fights, I should say, and people are using that for their Islam pick, which is fine, and we'll get to that. But now everybody is saying the same things I was shouting on, saying, what are they saying now, Sean? What are they saying? Maximoff got pushed too fast. Maximoff should have never been. Who is saying that? Who is the guy who's been saying this about Contender Series fighters, much less ones who Nate Diaz admittedly said the only reason guy Sano Jr., who gets KO'd in 4 seconds, and Nick Maximoff are in here because, and credit to him looking out for his boys, but again, back to the question, are you really doing your boy a favor there? He specifically negotiated them in the UFC. If that's not a fade on the spot kind of a deal, A, I don't know what is, and B, if you care about these fighters and their progression, which is why I complain about, the feeder system, why I complain about certain matchups. It's not even about the betting. It's because I actually care. Like, I want to see people actually have a chance to develop and give themselves a shot. And him getting that decision was the worst thing. And to hear everybody have that same takeaway, it like both feels good and upsets me at the same time, which is why I'm so passionate. Either way, I was proven right. I will cash that ticket happily, injury or not. I will take it. Sorry, passion.
I went from betting Maximoff to I bet Malkoun in this fight too. Like I saw,
yes.
I think I'm wrong on this guy. And it's funny you said the push
smart man
fast negotiated for him. I had a lot of those same takes with Jacob Malkoun. And then
sure,
got
yeah.
knocked down in 18 seconds against Phil Hawes. I'm like, that's it. This is just Bobby. It's Bobby Knuckles' friend. This is who this is.
Same, yeah.
And then he beats Razak Al-Hassan. I'm like, well, he can't wrestle. And he beats Dobson, and I go, And even though he lost, and I think he won the fight against Allen, by the way. I think he beat Brendan Allen. I didn't like those scorecards, if I remember right.
It was competitive, and that was a reason why I don't share the sentiment, but it was it was really close, and right. it gained my respect, which is what led me on here. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, good. And then he did this and I think right after this, he cashed the ticket. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop calling him Robert Whitaker's friend. He belongs here. He's got, for this weight class to go for that many takedowns repeatedly is impressive. It's just I'm interested to see who he gets next.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a guy who's 5'9" and may or may not have just been offered a middleweight fight, on a personal level, it was nice to see a 5'9" guy do it. So, who's not like an outstanding athlete, because I definitely am not. So props to Malkoun for that. Joe Anderson Brito is an outstanding athlete, though, and he defeated Lucas Alexander. I'm not a Brito hater by any means, but I will say he does have a weird sample size, and I'm going to be looking for overinflation. Not saying he doesn't deserve it and won't cash again, but the guy is scary. I'm just more curious to see who they match him up with and who they line. I'm not being a hater, but I don't know if that makes sense, because if you look at the sample size, it's a really weird one.
We're all just waiting for round 2. When are we going to see round 2? Are we ever going to see it?
Yeah.
I think so, but yeah, you got to see who gets. what you're waiting for that next step up in competition to not a top rank guy, that middle rank guy. Clearly he needs the next step. This is what happens with these type of guys, but he's making the low level UFC guys look like regional guys, and that's impressive.
Yep, absolutely. Piero Rodriguez defeated Sam Hughes. I didn't watch much of this. Did you watch it? Any thoughts, agreements in the decision, disagreements?
I watched all this fight, and I thought the right fighter won. I'm glad the judges weren't fooled by, okay, Hughes is walking forward, so she wins. I'm glad that wasn't. I mean, I've seen that happen before. I thought Rodriguez did more damage. I thought the rounds were pretty clear. I bet Rodriguez here. So as I'm watching the fight, I'm like, oh man, this is close. This is really close. And I kind of was like, and I rewatched it after because we had some early finishes. I went back and I rewound and rewatched. And I'm like, what was I worried about? I was talking to Newsom. He goes, yeah, it was clear. I don't know why you were freaking out, but it's one of those. I had a pretty big bet in this fight because I was pretty confident in Pierre Rodriguez. Nice.
Well, I'm glad you ended up getting it in that case. Over Sampage. Tatsuro Taira defeated CJ Vergara. But no, Vergara put up a good fight as long as he could. Still ended up getting submitted by armbar. I had Taira by sub and in the round robin, so I definitely was happy to get the night started off this way. Any thoughts on this fight going in or coming out?
More impressed with Taira than I was coming in. He is. I knew he was a good grappler. It was one of those against his competition. I wasn't sure. Is he gonna run into a guy who can stop it? And is his regional competition going to get exposed? And no, I mean CJ Vergara is a good fighter, and he was able to do the things he was doing on the regional level. And now I love grappling. I love these grapple heavy fighters. I know a lot of people don't. They want striking. I'm kind of the opposite. So I'm higher on Taira going out than I was coming in.
Nice. He's still raw but he's still young. He's got a long way to go. Seems to love himself some In-N-Out Burger. I may have to set that trend and do a Five Guys thing if I after I fight or compete next time because I feel like In-N-Out's getting too much love. I'm a contrarian, so I gotta make sure I have no followers by hating on things like In-N-Out. No, just kidding.
My wife's a Five Guy, loves Five Guys.
It's great. You actually can get bacon. You can actually get bacon and toppings I know and everybody likes mayo. They go ugh, but I mean it's a basic condiment, and I feel like you should offer basic condiments. It's great. I don't know. Don't get me. We'll get on a fast food talk. I'll be talking for days on fast food. Don't get me started.
We gotta have a podcast about that because I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. That's fun. We could go out opinions just like this, which is great. I'll say this. Is it Chick-fil-A? I'm just saying. Just not hating on the sandwiches or the sauces. Why can't we put the sauce on the sandwich? For me, can somebody put the sauce on the sandwich? Why are we acting like that's never been done before and it's not a possibility in this universe? Anyway, I'm sorry. Forget carrying the why there. Last night, Pete Rodriguez defeated Mike Jackson to wrap this thing up. Pete Rodriguez did what I imagine most of us thought. I don't blame anybody that took flyers for the value numbers on Mike Jackson. Rooting for Mike Jackson. I hope.
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Why? Why in God's green? I
don't know.
Basically, half my I laid a lot of money on Pete Rodriguez just to get a few $100 back. I'm like, there is no way.
Again, another stocky 5'9" guy. So my heart was with Rodriguez, but as a journalist, media guy, getting his shot to fight in the cage, part of me is also, I'm not a hater, man. I don't know if you could say I was rooting for Mike Jackson because I didn't pick him or play him, or I never have. But part of me, that doesn't mean I'm wishing ill on the guy. So.
I don't hate on him. It just, again, objectively, I was
totally.
This should be minus 1,500. This what's happening? So I mean, I took it for what I could.
I hear you. Yep. Hopefully you all cashed. All right, we're going to be getting to UFC 280 here in a second. Just want to give some love to the chat. Of course, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you're following my man at @sniper_MMA, as well as myself if you want, at DanTomMMA, Andy G with Areza Ramon. Avi. Dan, what's good, my man? This card is absolutely wicked. Can't wait for the breakdowns. We're going to get to them hopefully soon here, sir. Oh, Rio. Dan Tom is MMA Media's number according to Tapology, if that made any sense. I'm not sure it does, but my reading comprehension sucks. So it's probably me. It's me. It's not you. It's me. Synchro Wing says, Alvin sharing love again to one of my favorite shows. Aw, thank you. I'm one of your favorite shows. That's awesome. I'm always just grateful you guys would even listen. By the way, we got Jimmy Kudo here. What's up, Dan? I'm just excited that we finally get a banger of a card. Me too. But somehow Bilal Muhammad and Caitlin Chukagian snuck their way into this event. Hey! I may or may not have love for some of those fighters coming up. We'll see. We'll see which ones I do, which ones I don't. Maybe, huh? The Manon Fiado of gift wrapping a bow. Look at that. I love it. The Chatri Sidyatong of picking fights wrong. I hope not, but that is a good rhyme. I appreciate that, Rain. Thank you. All right, let's get to it. I'm seeing some technical questions come in, so I'll get one more and then we'll get to this breakdown here. Ghost Phantom says, how important will front kicks to the body for Oliveira be in this open stance matchup? Word on the street is that the front kick has a better angle from an open stance matchup. Depends on what kind of front kicks. Let's just dump right into it, right? The main event, UFC 280, 35 minutes in here, reading it, and we've got Charles Oliveira, who is your underdog. So let's see here. What are the current? Makachev is the favorite at. Sorry, I just want to try to pull up some current odds as it's loading. What? Let's see here. Running slow. Do you got odds on your end, Sean?
I have them from a few days ago from my sheet I put out. So at least a few days ago it was Makachev minus 180, Oliveira plus 155.
Yeah, I'm getting it minus, even though they're labeling it UFC 281 here, which is hilarious. Yeah, it's the same here pretty much. So yeah, I ended up we're on opposite sides of this one. Spoiler alert. So I ended up taking the Oliveira money line, and I also took a prop, and I guess I'll just shoot some of the reasonings why. Shouts to my guy Big Marley, was able to share it on his show first. Shared it with a couple people in the DMs, but I really haven't seen anyone pick up on this analysis. Now, does this mean Charles is going to win? Does it mean he's going to win by submission? No, of course not. But every once in a while, pieces of the puzzle tend to kind of stick together, and y'all get that organic Leo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood moment where, I don't know if you ever get this with your research or what your process is, Sean, where you're like, oh, there it is right there. And sometimes it's for something you're not even looking for, right? And I'm not going to lie, I already was liking Charles DuBronx, so maybe there is some kind of confirmation bias at play. But I'll tell you what, this is a pretty hardcore sample, which is, first part of the sample I noticed ahead of Michael Chandler versus Oliveira. I actually did pick Chandler in that. I did have a lot of bias, of course. I used to train with Mike on the come up. And in my defense, even DuBronx stands, diehard DuBronx fans, they even said, this is the one fight we're worried about stylistically. People who knew what they were watching, regardless of the side they were on in my defense. But what I noticed was that no matter the variation, I share that gif of Charles DuBronx front choke threats. No matter the variation of Darce, Anaconda, guillotine, the iteration, what the scenario is, not just 9 times out of 10, literally 11 times out of 10, like every time, right? He feeds to his left side. Even in his last fight, which is something I called for, again, when you go back and read my analysis, which I was actually quite proud of when you go back to read that Gaethje Oliveira prediction. I pretty much called it to a T. Even Gaethje's success and how he was going to have it. But if you look at that fight, he even was, from the body and the front teeps, which I said was going to be a big factor in that fight because Gaethje, he tends to have a lower level. And when you attack the body, it only makes you lower your level more, and that feeds into a front headlock. And you saw Charles, even though that's not how he finished the fight, he was constantly looking for those, and it was to his left side. So again, pass or fail, attempt or not, it is 11 times out of his 10 his left side. So when I was scouting for Chandler, I wanted to see what side of his head, does it fall to on his shots. We didn't have to worry about that with Chandler too much. Fast forward, we have Islam Makhachev. Guess which side his head is literally 10 times out of 10 on his shots. It's always to his right side, which is Oliveira's left side. Now, I do think he's going to do less shots and more clinch because Khabib is an excellent coach. In fact, this is kind of a hot take, which isn't. It's a compliment to Khabib, but Khabib fans are so like rabidly insane that unless you're saying the exact compliment and like you're sucking the dick the exact way they want you to suck his dick, it's like blasphemy. And because it sucks, because I actually do love Khabib's style. I've been a big fan of Makhachev, by the way. I've been a guy, while everybody was still like learning where Khabib's dick was to start sucking it when they were just starting their fanboy process, the Luke Thomases of the world, we were talking about Islam Makhachev and how technical he is. So I am not disrespecting these fighters or their games at all when I'm saying this, but I do think that Khabib, my bold prediction, my hot prediction is that he may end up being a better coach than he was a fighter, which isn't hard to do because the guy didn't fight that much. He was great. He's undefeated. No, he was dominant.
He didn't fight that much.
But he didn't fight that much.
I love it. You know what I think the biggest challenge is? I don't know what kind of fighters are going to go to Khabib other than this one stylistic. You know, those Russian grapplers are going to flock to Khabib.
Sure.
The way MMA evolves, what's really good, like, styles get beaten, people get better, and what's the next thing that's going to happen? Like, or is Khabib going to get that next level of fighter? That's interesting. I'm wondering who he's going to attract to his camp.
If you look at it that way, but that's the problem. Everybody looks at it that way. We're looking at it like, if Do Bronx wins, people are saying Diego Lima should get Coach of the Year. But if Islam wins, Khabib should get it. And people are basing it off of that thing. And I have a problem with that. It's the same thing of defending legacies off of like, title defenses makes much more sense, but just like these arbitrary numbers without the context. And again, people that are complimenting Khabib, I don't think they're complimenting him the right way. The reason why I say it is because I actually listen to how these coaches work and corner and their stylings, and I kind of grade them quietly. Khabib says some really sharp things. He picks up on a lot of really sharp details. And part of it is like, in the Lentz fight, and this is when he's a still active fighter. The Lentz fight's over a half a decade ago now, I believe. And Lentz has a really good guillotine, a veteran, right? So that's an important fight to go back and watch, even though it's a while ago. And listening to how sharp Khabib was, even as an active fighter, which fighters, especially active fighters, but fighters in general, they're great. They are not the best coaches or corners, believe me. They are not the best for that. All the time. Not every time. And Khabib says some really smart stuff that people like myself will just I appreciate. I know it's not going to get the respect it deserves. It's more to your point, back to your point, Sean. It's kind of the who's he going to get? Is kind of get him those accolades. But I'm looking at him just purely as a coach, and this guy is really that must run in his family. Abdul Manap was a hell of a coach, right? Rest in peace, right, to that guy. That guy was a hell of a coach, man. He was a real head of his time. He went and studied with like judo dudes in the USSR and combined sambo from Dagestan. Like, he was really innovative, and we've seen Khabib kind of do that. So I just want to pay him that compliment there, and I kind of want to parlay it into that. I think that they could notice this stuff, and I think that Khabib, just like he did in the Lentz fight, will be telling Makhachev this Saturday, folks, to not shoot so much for the detail that I just said. But here's the problem: is that not only can you see front headlocks be snatched from a clinch position? Front headlockers do it all the time, like the Brian Ortegas of the world, the Charles Oliveira's of the world. But Charles, I think he's a left-handed orthodox fighter. Which is not as crazy as it sounds, folks, because most gyms they hate me. They hate people who fight from southpaw, right? So if you're a left-handed person, there's a high chance that you're going to get trained into fighting orthodox, whether that's your style or not, right? And I say that because if you look at where he's choking and his left hook and his left teep and his front kick, right? Like, his left shots are kind of quietly more powerful. Jan Blachowicz is the same thing, and will tell you that. Jan Blachowicz will be like, my left side's much more powerful. That's why you see me hurt guys with it, whether I'm switching to southpaw and making it obvious or I'm doing it off of my lead side. My left side is that much better, okay? Islam is kind of the opposite. Like, I'm a right-handed southpaw, so maybe that would be the opposite. But Islam, I think, is a true left-handed southpaw, folks. So that means when you look at him in the clinch, even when he's going for his air quotes safer takedowns, he is, again, not just like 90%, like 95 to 99, if not 100% of the time. He is establishing underhooks on his left side, and he is looking for leg reaps on his left side. What does that mean? Well, in technical terms, that means his head is always sagging off to the opposite side, which is his right side, which is Oliveira's left side, for those of you following at home. Again, does this guarantee Oliveira's going to win? No. Does it mean he's going to win it by submission? Of course not. But goddamn, is it kind of ironic that both of their strongest muscle memories over everything, striking, grappling, every phase, the one thing they do inherently the most, it is a connecting puzzle piece. And I could present this thing to a great fighter and great coach like Khabib and Islam, who is a great fighter, and it wouldn't matter. I mean, it really wouldn't as far as the result goes, because during the stress and duress of a fight, people revert to their base instinct, whether they're hurt, whether they're tired, or any of the other stressors and the things that put you under that duress. So I'm going to pick Charles Oliveira by a club and sub by the second round. But if he doesn't do that, I think we're going to have problems here, and I think my guy Sean is going to be able to highlight and make a good argument for the problems that Islam can present.
So and it's funny, I have an incredibly close fight, and that is the way Oliveira wins this fight. I kind of, without meaning to foreshadow earlier, I think Oliveira has to win this by submission. I don't think he's going to have any great success against Makhachev on the feet. Not because he's not a better striker than Makhachev, because I think this fight, you kind of hit on my point earlier, I think we're going to see a lot of time in the clinch. And I think the game plan, what's going to happen is I think it's going to be a grinding, ugly type of fight up against the cage, trip takedowns, some top control, and just kind of Makhachev leaning on Oliveira. And look, Oliveira's had trouble making the weight in the past. I know the report that just came out was he's already on weight and going to bed, and you see how that goes. Fine. There's also that past narrative, which I know nobody killed me when he just read it. There was a long thing for a while that Oliveira was a quitter. And not that he would quit, but just when things got hard in the fight, he would will. And because fights are hard, you get somebody on top of you leaning on you. His style is just not made for that. I do believe, for the most part, he is a front runner. I know he was hurt by Chandler. New round, he got the hurt early in the second. I think if he doesn't hurt Chandler early in the second round, there's going to be issues going forward. I think Oliveira is much better as a front runner. And I think with Makhachev leaning on him and pressure, I think if this gets out of the second round, I think you're going to see a tired-looking Charles Oliveira, and I think Makhachev should slowly, kind of like we saw Khabib do, just slowly drown his victim and wear on top of people. And I think the ground and pound is going to be an issue. So my official pick on this fight was Islam Makhachev via round 4 knockout. I think it's just going to be an accumulation of the fight, just wearing down Charles Oliveira. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's one of those, remember last week, well, this card sucks, and I think it was a good main card. Don't think the main event is going to deliver like people want it to. I'm sorry to pour cold water on it. It's just kind of part of my analysis to how I see it going, I think. And we see it plenty of times. Islam is very similar to Khabib. Yeah, Khabib was great. How exciting were his fights? Think back. Remember, this is what we're in for should it go that way. And similar to, in my mind, the linear champion is Paul Felder. And I say that because he finished Charles Oliveira in a very similar way that I think Islam Makhachev is going to finish Charles Oliveira. I think in the guard, I think it's going to be that accumulation of a fight from Charles Oliveira. Not that he's quitting per se. I know it's the narrative of just exhaust, can't do anymore, and that's the fight. So I think I would even probably take over 3.5 rounds. I think by the end of round 4, we're going to be done, and that should be it. Now, I get what you're saying, and if Makhachev makes a mistake closing the distance in rounds 1 or 2, that's where I'm worried. If he shoots to the Oliveira strong side, if he makes a mistake in his trip takedown, because I heard your analysis on Marley's show, because I was like, I wonder what Dan thinks. I'm going on this show. Let me peek at what he did. I was like, that makes total sense. And I rewatched a little more today. I was like, it's right. Everything that you said is totally accurate. I don't think Makhachev is going to fall into it. I'd be more worried if I was worried about Oliveira late. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Oliveira cardio was improved, or he's going to do more damage on the feet than I suspect. But as far as I see it playing out, I have it, the typical Oliveira early. I like that you make a pick that we get Makhachev late.
Yeah, I think that's not crazy because those are Makhachev's win conditions. The way you kind of explain that type of a fight, right? The only thing I guess I'll push back on a little bit is the quitting thing, because I feel like Islam's style will make everybody looks like they quit. It is exhausting. I mean, even Moises, who I wasn't expecting to come back, wasn't expecting to win at all in that fight. But it was clear where it was going. But even with it being clear and dominant and all that, I was almost surprised with, like, oh, I guess he's done. He's tapping. He's tapping from the crab ride to the RNC there, and kind of not gave it up. I'm not trying to kick Moises down. I'm trying to express how dominant and just how tiring that style.
Quitting's the worst.
That style. That style is. I know it's tough. It's a tough word. Tough word.
It's more like, can a guy be grinded out? Is he grindable? And some guys in MMA are so crazy, out of this world tough that they're not grindable. And some people, that's not their best quality, and it comes across like quitting. It's not quitting.
It's just a high percent. It's a high percentage style. It's really it is really effective. But I think we agree on the structure of the fight, on what it has to look like. My guy Brad Tashchuk says round robin's out here changing lives. I'd love to see it. Thank you, Brad, for educating me of the ways of the dark side. And you can bet your butt I will have some Oliveira by submission in this week's round robin. For me, again, you don't got to follow me off the cliff. I don't blame anybody siding with my guy Sniper here, but I will add that if he and I'm also gonna put some positive shine on Islam striking that I haven't heard him get too much love on too as well here. So just a couple more things on this fight before we push on. I will add something that, like, when if it does get to the ground, he gets past the striking phase, the clinching phase, and the transitional grappling phase. That's 3 phases you got to pass to get the top control, right? I don't know if it's that much of a home free stretch if he gets it there either, because as we saw with against another wrestler who is really good jiu-jitsu and riding and submission acumen, and Kevin Lee, Oliveira used leg entanglements, and something I forgot about. It was either round 3 or 4 when going back to watch that said Moises fight, to go give Moises some credit in case it sounded like I was shitting on him earlier, is that Moises, about a minute or just over a minute, which doesn't sound like a long time, but it's kind of a long time, especially in the context of a fight, much less that fight. He goes for a leg lock. Now, he's finished leg locks before, so Makhachev is rightfully respecting it, right? But, man, he wasn't doing some real basic leg lock defense, and I'm like, okay, am I just judging a fighter too hard, Dan? How good is your leg lock defense? Well, I can tell you it's not great, and it's certainly gotten worse over the years because I haven't been refreshing on it. But there were fundamentals that popped out to me and were only affirmed because Islam himself, which the commentary noted, had to look back to his corner for direction. And again, he has an excellent corner, but even with the excellent corner, even with the direction, even with all that said time, he got locked down even though he was in the top position. He couldn't move, didn't want to move. And it really scared me, honestly, as somebody who has been, despite my pick here, I've been very high for over half a decade on this guy's grappling. And that actually kind of really worried me. So there are things there where I feel like that's where Islam needs to be. Your win conditioning is the way you laid out. You're not crazy. You're exactly right on how it needs to be. I just feel like even if he does get there, it's not a given. But on the other side, for people discounting that Islam has to wrestle to win, he has tools on the feet. He is a really snappy kicker. You could tell he really took off that Luke Rockhold school of things, and he's got a real powerful left kick. And there's something that I've been putting in my analysis for over half a decade now, especially even whether I pick against or for Charles Oliveira, is that, and again, this could be past analysis with the front running stuff, because I think he did look more of a front runner, to your point. I think that was more correct at 145. People criticizing or worried about his weight, I don't blame you if we're talking about Oliveira at 145. And at 145, maybe it's there because he's cutting weight, and I often talk about people being more susceptible to the body when they cut weight. Maybe it's not there as much as Oliveira has built in and went up a weight class and filled out right. But body kicks and body attacks have always been very effective on him, and it's something I always highlight. And Makhachev's got a really good southpaw body attack, and Makhachev's main countering weapon is a check right hook. And checking hooks, as we've seen with the Gaethje and Poirier, something I also said to watch out for, despite picking Oliveira to still win, said he was going to win but get caught by those things, which he did, is those checking hooks. So for anybody discounting Islam chances on the feet, those are two weapons that I want to remind everybody that will be very potent. So let's not act like, even me as an Oliveira supporter, let's not act like Islam has no chance and no weapons to threaten him with, because that's not true. He does. I just wanted to add those two things for both sides.
You know, I get this is the chance I should take to add a little bit of DraftKings. If you're playing what we call cash games, 50-50s, double ups, you're basically winning double your money, whether you're going one-on-one or in a large field. If you're not familiar or you're new, you can absolutely play both fighters to build a floor. If you were talking to Marley, I know you guys talked about stacking. And in the interesting scenario this week, we have 2 5-round fights. You always want to stack the 5-round. Unless they're high variance. I can make a case, and usually I would break Marley's balls. You can't double stack. I'm flirting with a double stack this week because this fight is going to be, the idea is twofold. It goes to a decision. Both guys have more rounds to work and rack up points and build your floor. Your floor is the minimum amount of points you can gain. It's just, with 2 5-round fights, you get 4 of your 6 roster spots. If you're making me pick which one I would double stack, I'll go with the Coleman, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I might just roster both these guys because it's close, and this way I'm not wrong. I'll let other people make the mistake, which is a common strategy in cash games. Just eat the chalk, let other people mess up.
I like that. Shouts to Herb Dean as the gold standard in the chat. Put some respect on Herb Dean. I appreciate you keeping me aligned in the chat, Herb. That's what you're here for. You're here for our safety. Go slap fighting, I guess. Anyways, don't get me distracted. No, that was some great notes, and yeah, I am a big fan of the stacking conversation. So I love that that conjecture, if you will. So that's really interesting there, especially when we talked about the next fight, which is Aljamain Sterling defending his bantamweight title. -175. He opened a bit wider, but it's come down to earth, in my opinion. I'll see what my guy Sean here thinks. Comeback on TJ Dillashaw +150. I was surprised with where I ended up on this fight. Where did you end up, and did it surprise you? And what are you expecting, man?
This is where I have to admit my own bias. I have been beating the Aljo drum for a long time. Like, his fight against Corey Sandhagen was probably one of my biggest bets, and I was being called stupid all week. That was one of the largest bets I've ever made.
Nice.
I'm on the Aljo side. I believe in the guy. I wish we'd put down the freaking Twitter. Whatever personality he's kind of crafted for himself, I'm still trying to figure out if he really is this cringe or he's going a little Colby on him. I'm trying to figure, or it's some combination where he's embracing the heel from the first Peter Yan fight. I'm trying to really figure it out. But put that aside for the analysis. The gas tank is there. He can wrestle. He can strike. Everything's there. The guy, they're very similar fighters. Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw. I cannot get the Dillashaw, his history, his age is really concerning. He didn't look great against Sandhagen. I think there's holes in Sandhagen. Not that Sandhagen isn't fun and flashy. I think he's a guy who got pushed a little quickly. I think he's really good and right towards the top of the division. I'm not as sold as Corey Sandhagen as everybody else. I think he'll get there. I think Sandhagen needs a little more time. I think he'll be a champion at some point, actually. It's one of those. So I knew coming in I was probably going to pick Aljo, and that is where I ended up. I ended up Aljamain Sterling via decision. I just think everything that Dillashaw does, Sterling does a little bit fresher, a little bit newer, a little bit faster, a little bit smoother. Can TJ push the pace he pushed in the past? That is, I think, his win condition. If he can be in Aljamain Sterling's face for 25 minutes, I think TJ's got a real path to victory. Similar to how I was saying Islam can wear on Charles, TJ can wear on Aljamain if Aljamain doesn't get this fight the distance he wants. If he can't dictate, I do think TJ. It is. I didn't bet Aljamain in this spot, honestly, because -175 is still too high for me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not even the guy I like here. It's just I don't feel good about it. I do think there's going to be a lot of pacing this fight, DraftKings, I'm probably going to target both guys. Both the main and co-main. A lot of times I like to be underweight, which means not as much as the field, because they typically get higher owned. Like, Donald Cerrone's always like 50% owned on a slate, and you're like, why? Oh, because he's Cowboy, and everybody loves him, and just the casual people who are playing these contests are just, oh, Cowboy Cerrone, I know him, I'll click him. Their names the more casual people know. So the strategy is, okay, let me go, they're going to be over-owned based what they should be. I'll go under, and I'll get some leverage. I can't do that this week because I think both these fights are going to be higher pace, enough takedown. Going to be like some DraftKings. It's kind of one of those, I have to go with the chalk, and there's some other spots I'll get cute with to kind of be different. These aren't them. So that's kind of my analysis. I think Aljamain, and I still people just, casuals anyway, discredit how good he is because they don't like him. And it kind of is what it is. I think he's just a newer version of TJ. And like I said, my worry is that pace. Can TJ do that? If he does, props to him.
Yeah, I feel that's the funny thing about this matchup, though, because I don't disagree. By the way, that's fair analysis. But on that last point, you could say that about both guys. TJ Dillashaw with the steroids, or Aljamain Sterling, whatever he's doing, the defending rape, or Andrew Tate, who I don't even know who this guy is. He seems like a douche nozzle for what it's worth.
I look it up now. But I just refuse.
Yeah. But the point is, I'm not trying to sidetrack us down that hole. But the point is, you got to wonder how much of that stuff is playing into opinions, to even as far as betting lines sometimes, right? I mean, we see this all the time. It sounds tinfoil hatty, but it's really not. It's part of the economy that we operate in, and you can't deny that some things influence the line, whether we agree with it, whether we think we should. It doesn't matter. Sometimes these things do. But basically, I came in thinking like you, man. I'm like Aljamain by decision. Even when I picked against them, I was happy to see him. I picked him to beat Jan the first time, not the second time, but I was happy to be wrong the second time, obviously. I picked him to submit. My analysis actually looks pretty good in hindsight in that Corey Sandhagen fight. So I share your sentiment there on feeling good about how that one played out, right? Before, during, after kind of a deal. So it's definitely no hate on Aljo. I mean, the dude shares a similar practice room and coaches and stuff. So, like, that's another part where, like, oh, no, is the bias, right? And I picked away from my bias last week, and it's like, Dan, why didn't you do the easiest thing that everybody and their mother does, where they just pick their biases, pick their boys, tell everybody else to shut up and, do your thing and victory lap and whatever. I would have had a perfect week last night, Sean. Last week. I would have had a perfect week if I did that. If I just did the obvious move, right? Yeah. Right? Why am I not picking Aljo here? Again, I don't disagree with the things you said. I love Aljo. But I'm actually picking Dillashaw because when I look at the history, by the way, shouts to my guy here, James Young. Says, looking lean, Dan. Thank you, man. But not to sidetrack or talk about me, but, like, again, back to the Aljo. You want to talk about how people are looking. Like, Aljo, I kind of worry about almost a little more because he cut so much weight. Like, I might look lean right now, but I'm still, like, trying to stay away from 180. I'm touching on, like, 179, 178. And I stand next to some of these bantamweights as a guy who's 5'9" and almost as big as me, man. It's insane. Like, these guys walk around in the 160s. You know what I'm saying? And Aljo's like one of those dudes. He's in great shape. He's not cutting straight from 160. He slowly works his way down. I'm not trying to spread misinformation. But I'm also not saying anything crazy by saying the dude is big. And the reason why I bring that up is because when I went back to watch the second Jan fight, even though I agree with the scores, I agree the right guy won, I'm happy for Aljo, right? And he did much better in that fight, right? He did much better with his pacing. But when it came to rounds 4 and 5, he still looked bad. I know we didn't get to see round 5, the first Jan fight, but we saw his kind of pacing already kind of crap by round 4. He did improve upon that, but again, he improved upon it enough to secure a win, but comes round 4 and 5, he still looked visibly slow and visibly tired. Whereas we want to talk about how Dillashaw looks, it's not that I'm going to disagree with you. I thought he looked good enough for me to pick him here, in short, right? But the thing that's interesting, Sean, and to our audience, I want to remind you, is that ever since his fights with Cody Garbrandt, really in the last 4 years, we barely have one round of honest footage, because how much do you take from the flyweight cut, the craziness of it, the EPO, the shortness of the fight in general? How much can you really take from that with Cejudo? And with Sandhagen, Dillashaw, we only get one round to analyze, guys. It's a 5-round fight, Dan. You're right. But when does Dillashaw get hurt? It is with a leg lock at the end of round 1. So his mobility and everything is compromised. So we only get a look of, as far as Dillashaw's proprioception, speed, athleticism, technique, all the above. We only get 1 round. So that's the dangerous part. Also the dangerous part about picking him, right? It's a two-way street here with Dillashaw. But when you spoke about history, Sean, and I'll throw it back to you here. When I look at history, and this is the reason why I picked and cashed Dillashaw by decision against Sandhagen, and now we have a sample size, again, with that Sandhagen sample size of him doing it in a 5-round fight. I could care less about the USADA era, but for what it's worth, EPO Shaw did it under USADA era, did it with 1 leg, did it with a hole in his head. Is that whether this guy's winning, whether he's losing, whether he's tired, whether he's hurt, whether he has a limb compromise, TJ Dillashaw is fighting for your money. And not only is he fighting for your money from a degenerate gambling perspective, but he's also finishing these fights very strong, if not outright winning them, or like in the Cruz fight, having an argument to at least outright win. And so I'm actually going to go with Dillashaw here. And speaking of the Cruz fight, which, by the way, Cruz is the longest person to ever really control him, only, I think, 33 seconds. I feel like that Cruz game plan will pay dividends by attacking the legs and doing those corralling kicks to the cage. It wasn't the wrong game plan. It just took to Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera knocked out Dominic Cruz with the same thing that TJ Dillashaw and Dwayne Ludwig were calling for. And it's going to go great with a guy like Aljo, who will play on the outside, who does use lateral movement, and you can break him down and target the legs. It's hard to hit his head, but it's easy to hit his legs. And I'm not a stats guy. Last thing here, Sean, I know I'm running along. I'm not a stats guy, but I can't ignore the 86% takedown defense and the lack of control time. More specifically, anybody can point to those stats, but the reason why you come here or to my breakdowns is because I actually did the work, and I looked at all, not just the completed takedowns, but I went and looked back at anybody who even thought about taking TJ Dillashaw down, and I look at what TJ Dillashaw is doing, and unlike the high percentage of always putting your head here or always snatching a choke here like we were talking about, TJ Dillashaw doesn't always do the classic wrestler back exposure. He will swim in for a single to do safe single leg stands like Ioana Jędrzejczyk and others, which is great. He'll go for your classic underhook get-ups. He'll use the fence. And he's just a ridiculously quick scrambler who 9 times out of 10 shuts it down and floats to the back, because lest we not forget, folks, it doesn't mean Aljamain Sterling can't get to his back. No. It doesn't mean he can't submit him. No, he can't. And I'll be looking forward to Aljamain Sterling doing that. I'll be looking forward to Dillashaw's defense. But the old adage, if you're good at something, doing it, you're probably decent at defending it. And we must not forget that Dillashaw, too, also started his UFC career as a human backpack. That's how he got his wins, especially against taller guys. So ultimately, even though I'm rooting for Aljo, I want to be able to show face at the gym, Sean, and not get my butt kicked by his friends. I got to be honest, man. I got to call what I see, and I can't see around that. So I'm picking and playing Dillashaw here. Am I crazy what I just said? I'm going to toss it back to you. Am I crazy?
No, it's not crazy. I guess the only thing I would kind of push back on a little is, when's the last time we saw TJ Dillashaw against a grappler? And you could say Cejudo, but that fight was,
right.
That wasn't a grappler fight.
Right.
Sandhagen got a grappler, hurt him with a leg lock. You got Aljo there. You got a Sarah BJJ black belt there. We're gonna break your legs. Not that I'm a black belt under Sarah.
Right. Yeah. No. Right. No. I hear you.
My arms. I had to stop rolling my elbow. Anytime you would even think about an armbar, my elbow pops out. Look at it.
I'm getting that way with my shoulder, man, and other injuries that I can't talk about right now. So I feel you.
I was just short of a blue belt, and I'm like, all right, sorry guys, I'm done here. You too old.
We're gonna get you that blue belt, buddy. We'll get you there. But yeah, you got to take care of yourself, though. Seriously, it's tough on the body. I don't disagree. But
and I had wife, kid at that point. I'm like, I can't anymore. So anyway, but in those, I've been in those rooms. Like he gets in that position he was in against Aljo, that he was in against Sandhagen, he'll get submitted there, or some serious damage where he's not going to be able to continue the fight. So you got those two. Then you got the two Garbrandt. Lineker, is he really a grappler? No, TJ took him down a bunch. A Sunsao, Dominic Cruz is probably the last time, and Dominic Cruz is just a guy who can mix everything in. And I won't keep going. I keep going down the list.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Like Joe Soto, I think, in 2014.
Yep. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah.
So that's a long time. MMA grappling, everything kind of evolves, and Aljo's just a different kind of animal. It could happen though. I mean, TJ has the skills. That's also part of it. I can't just assume, to argue against myself, that it's not there because I haven't seen it. You know, TJ's working on all this stuff.
Right.
I haven't seen it. It's hard to cap anything I haven't seen.
It is tough, and for that reason, it does almost feel like a dog or pass spot, which, you know, even Aljo supporters have kind of shared that sentiment. Even if they're picking Aljo, there is some things where you can't be too confident either way at the end of the day. I did take a shot on Dillashaw at the money line at plus 150 range, and I also, even though I officially picked him by decision, because again, the one thing I am leaving with is I came in thinking it was going to be a competitive decision, granted, for Aljo. I'm leaving officially picking a competitive decision for Dillashaw, but because of that potential fading, because of the legs, things can happen, especially when you cut a lot of weight and you start to get older. I sprinkled on Dillashaw round 4 TKO plus 3,000 and round 5 TKO plus 3,500. Got it for decent odds in other houses that would just let me do the rounds, which was as high as still 2,500, I believe, for round 4. Still 3,000 for round 5. I did my normal, as you know it, load the clip. Click, 17.17 ducats. My little sprinkles there, 17 ducats that I don't care to see again, can return me multiple units in return, almost a half a G, depending on, if he gets it done late here. So you don't have to follow me off that cliff. I'm just being honest, as per usual, where my money's at. Not telling you where to put yours, folks. Any last things on this fight before we push on?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. We're not on this fight yet, but Brad Tashjuk says, man on Fiorot against overmatched strawweights is the key to more standing stoppages. Sad but true. Sorry. James Hetfield's drunk. Not me. I wish I was. All right. Next fight is a Peter Yan minus 265, Sugar Sean O'Malley plus 225. Any hot takes, or just what are your thoughts for this one, my friend? Ball's in your court, Sean.
I think it was funny. I was at 276. I was in Vegas for International Fight Week. If it's not 276, I'm gonna look stupid. I think it was 276. I was not one of the ones who left early, but I did see the Sean O'Malley train wreck of a fight. I have to admit, but I was there as strictly a fan. I was pretty inebriated.
Buddy.
I thought the time Pedro Munoz quit, I was yelling all kinds of mean things.
No.
I mean, I was in the crowd. I was out of it. And
you were among the animals. It's okay. You're among the animals.
I'm like, I was pretty wrong. That's not what happened at all. And it got me thinking, but still, got me thinking that we're starting to see the regression in Sean O'Malley. We all kind of expected. I was on O'Malley in that fight, and stylistically didn't play out the way I wanted. But you can't be a tapology. But all right, who is O'Malley beaten? Like let's refresh ourselves here. You know, he lost to Marlon Vera, Eddie Wineland. All right, Thomas Almeida. The ghost of Thomas Almeida.
Right? Yeah.
Accurate description. Sorry, Thomas, but he's done. You know, Chris Moutinho. I mean, guy is tough, but okay. Halley and Paiva did win, but you're gonna tell me to go from Halley and Paiva to Pedro Munoz, Peter Yan, and up here with the big dogs, like a little too fast. But it's detriment to Sean O'Malley. I think it's weird in that he went too slow. The progression of time where you should build. Now he's got to go too fast. It could be a nice, the way people build should be a nice smooth arc. O'Malley kind of recognized, or the UFC, whoever, they went really slow to build the star, but then they got to the point where they went too slow, and it became this weird. Oh well, he's been around for this long. He really should be at this spot, and I think he's in over his head. So people are saying tough stylistic matchup at first. Look, Peter Yan, unless Sean O'Malley decides to become a grappler, which would stun me. I think Peter Yan is going to go forward, and I think he's a different level of striker than Sean O'Malley has faced. O'Malley, I don't think those counter games are going to work here. I think Peter Yan does a much better job of cutting off the cage than anybody else who's fought. I think he's going to corner him. I think he's going to land some big shots. I've seen Peter Yan attack legs. We know that issue against Sean O'Malley. anywhere Peter Yan wants to win this fight, I think he can. I asked a little bit of value in the big number in Peter Yan. I don't bet big numbers like that straight up. I'll probably toss Peter Yan in a parlay somewhere that ends up paying better odds with another favorite. I think this is a little bit too much for Sean O'Malley, and I think we're going to see him take a step back here. And it's one of those, I like this, and then I can go underweight on DraftKings because people are going to be on Sean O'Malley because, again, it's the guy they know and he's really cheap. How can I not? I think Peter Yan is, I think you're going to get a very, very angry Peter Yan after those fights. Like, he just beat Corey Sandhagen, he dismantled Corey Sandhagen after losing the first round. Like, that's impressive. I think Sandhagen is a better striker than the fight I want to see is Sandhagen and O'Malley. But I just Peter Yan's straightforward style. I think he'll be able, and everything I was looking for is how does he cut off the cage, or get the right foot position, and all the flashy stuff O'Malley does puts him in bad enough spots where a guy who's as good as Peter Yan is going to cut off the cage and make him pay. And I actually kind of question how much damage Sean O'Malley can take. I haven't seen it yet. We know the leg stuff, but when he gets hit real good, like, have you seen him take a solid punch hit from the top from a guy with power? I don't think so. And not that it's hard to say, this guy has no chin. It's just there's something about the way O'Malley carries himself and gets hit even in those lesser fights that I don't like. So I think the official pick I made for this one, what did I do? Yep, I went Peter Yan round 2 knockout.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm right behind you. By the way, great analysis. I agree, and I think it's fair-handed analysis. Again, I try to keep my filter clean, so I haven't seen it, but I want to shout Miguel Class from the Fight Site. He also put out an analysis piece on Sean O'Malley, and from the sound of it, it sounds like he as well is more middle-grounded, where he's not just like an outright hater, but he's not praising the guy to be the next McGregor, obviously, either. And that's where I stand. But I've also been somebody who, I mentioned it earlier on this show, Sean, and my listeners will know I talk about this all the time, which is, again, that durability, cutting down to 135, the bigger fighters as they get older, especially. Aljo is a big fighter, but he's not super tall, and he's well built, right? But these taller guys, like I would fade the crap out of Andre Ewell every time I'd be betting round 3 opposite Andre Ewell, because he just would gas. His body would give out. You see he's hurt to the body, to the legs very easily. We've seen this with Montel Quick Jackson, another really tall bantamweight. Again, tall, skinny guys, right? Going back old school references, 155, Corey Hill as far as the shin snappers, right? And it's these lighter weight classes, tall, lanky guys. This is true throughout the timeline, folks. I'm not saying anything crazy here. And in fact, if I'm going to keep that same energy, because I've long said it about O'Malley before Sukumtat, before Vera, and has been proven right again for the umpteenth time, not just on this topic, but on this particular fighter that we're relevantly talking about now, well, then maybe I should pull up from my Peter Yan decision. Granted, I will admit, the fight I have queued up now is Pedro Munoz, Sean O'Malley. I have to go refresh myself because I can't remember. I wasn't drunkenly shouting like my guy here, Sean, but I can't remember what my reaction was. Right?
So not a proud night.
So I don't want to weigh in on that yet, folks, and I will fully disclose that. But coming in, my basic was a basic take, which is not so much slow starts, because that sounds a little too negative. Not that I care. Not that Jan's going to be sensitive about it. But like, he's more taking reads in the first round, and I thought Sean O'Malley may have his chance there to have a decent round. Or if there was going to be an upset, it would be there. But then Jan, being the builder that he is, adjusts and just puts it on him in rounds 2 and 3 for a decision. Plus 100 is too low of a number, even if it's still there. So I was going to stay away from this fight because I really haven't been big on parlays personally. But the more I think about it, if I'm keeping that same energy, I'm like, I feel like this is round 3 all over it. So I'm thinking about either going Jan round 3 plus 900. Unfortunately, Jan round 3 by KO is only plus 1,000. It's only a little bit more, but I think I might just play that, and then if I don't play anything else, it's fine. I either don't miss it and don't notice that it's gone if it doesn't hit, or if it does. Let's see what $20 I don't want to see again gets me. 200 at plus 1,000 and a little less, obviously, at plus 900. If you just want to take the round 3, the general number that's posted at most Sportsbook. But if it happens in round 2, at least I'll know that my guy over here is probably cashing. Sean, because that's your pick, right? Round 2?
That is.
Wow. Okay. You know what? Screw it. I played it. I'm not saying you got to follow me off the cliff. I'm just being honest with where I put my money, folks. And I just placed that at, I won't say where because they're not paying me. And they're apparently a sketchy book. So, yeah, I just placed it. But if any
now I know who it is.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I'm kind of giving it away, too, the fact that it's a method prop house and the fact that I'm in Vegas. So, I'm not allowed to play at any of the fantasy duel sites there. So,
Yep.
so you know where I'm at. Those in the know. All right, next fight. Me and Jean are fairly in line here. Next fight is going to be Beneil Dar. This is one I really wanted to get done before. It's been such a crazy week here, folks, and I apologize. Full disclosure, I am I'm admitting this, knowing that the confirmation bias that naturally comes with it, but I'm looking at interest to bet Beneil Dariush. But do not be surprised when my main quick picks article comes out that I'm picking Gamrot because I feel like he is a justified favorite here, even in a 3-round fight, because pace and gas tank, I think, is his strength here, as well as wrestling and being able to stay out of submissions. I think that's going to be his biggest strength for winning this fight, but I haven't done my due diligence, so I'm not going to commit. Save me here. What are your thoughts on this fight, Sean?
I'm not going to be able to save you too much in that I'm on the Dariush side, but it's kind of the way I think he's going to catch a submission.
Okay.
That's the way I see this playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I picked round 1 submission. I could see round 2. I just think at some point, the way both these guys fight, there's going to be a shot or a scramble or some kind of grappling exchange. If they stay at the feet, they're so well matched. I lean towards Gamrot on the feet. The problem is Dariush is his unconventional style. He drags people into brawls, and we've seen Dariush hurt. You're going to see the Drakkar close footage for forever. That's just anytime there's Dariush fight, you're going to see that over and over again. But he'll drag people into his style of fight, and that's kind of what I'm interested in. If it's one of those, whose style's going to hold out here? And Gamrot relies on the takedown. He's got 4 against Diego Ferreira. He's got 6 against Arman Sarukian. You don't want to be down there with Beneil Dariush, and you've seen Dariush had he knocked out the spinning back this knockout remember against her. But he's got these knockout finishes. He's better on the ground. He's scary good on the ground. He's a legit black belt. Not that Gamrot can't hold his own down there. I think that I think there's some holes in his submission grappling that a guy like Dariush could snatch up. So I'm taking a shot in the dog. I do agree with you. I think Gamrot is the justifiable favorite because I think he's the better striker. He's the better control grappler. If he can get on top of Dariush, who's tired. I think at some point in one of these exchanges, and I'm assuming that Dariush is going to do what he's been able to do in the past and make it his style of fight. Gamrot is smart, and it's why I kind of got off the fence. Or if it was a pick'em fight, I'd probably Gamrot's the value side. The odds I got on Dariush for plus 180 something. That's just too wide for me. The guy Dariush, who's I think is really dangerous. The guy I do root for. I like both guys, but I really root for a guy like Dariush. The salt and pepper hair makes me feel good about myself.
Yeah, right. I hear that.
I think there's openings here for a dog to come barking. I think there's a little bit of recency bias baked into the line. Not that Jeremy Stevens, Diego Ferreira, who I almost called Carlos Diego Ferreira, but I won't do that anymore. And Arman Sarukian, they're not good wins. There's something about Benny's style that I think is going to cause Gamrot some problems, and that's not the kind of hard-hitting analysis because it's one of the way I break down fighting is my process is it's not that it's not technical, but I like to get an idea of the styles of
sure.
the guys, how they're going to
yeah.
And I try and visualize it. I visualize the two guys, what are they going to look like when they're in the cage with each other? And for whatever reason, when I'm visualizing it, I don't like the style matchup for Gamrot here. I just think Dariush is an awkward type of style that he's going to face. And I could be wrong, and if Gamrot is able to keep his distance, his pace, I could actually see him finishing Dariush. I like, and find the line, I like the under 2.5 in this fight. Gotta find what the official bet is there. That is one I haven't made yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah, I don't hate that as far as an angle because you've got some coverage. Because I think that either could knock each other out, more than submit each other. But if Beneil gets a submission, I'll be very happy for you and his supporters, and Beneil obviously. I just, again, I gotta look into it. I want to go back and look at against Gamrot against the Southpaw, which you have UFC level 1, which the only one is Norman Parks. You got to go back a bit. And more relevantly, you want to see how many times does he give control of his back. He is a wrestler, so those things will naturally create back exposure. But he is more like of Dillashaw, but the offensive version, where he's going for low singles and things that if you mess up, yeah, you could be in a scramble where your back is exposed. But especially compared to Beneil, and not just because Beneil has the gray hairs or whatever, but just how they move. Gamrot's so fast and fast twitch and in 3 rounds, I just think he's going to be hard to kind of get a beat on. So I want to see who's able to get to his back. The reason being, I know Beneil has an armbar win even in the UFC against Drew Dober, so he can finish off of his back. That is something that's live here, right, to your submission point. But as far as taking the back goes, I see him having a hard time trying to do that. I feel like Beneil Dariush more win conditions is making an ugly fight to either get a knockout, or if not get a knockout, at least hurt Gamrot in round 1 enough to steal the round, throw Gamrot off of his game to keep that temperature high, to where if Beneil's going to gas out in a hard fight, at least make it hard for Gamrot as well. And then he's going to have to edge out either round 2 or maybe even round 3 before he gasses. And then it's like a Diego Fajeda thing where it's like a split. It's kind of a close decision, but Beneil does more damage. He's the more damaging fighter. I could definitely see him winning off of that. So I know that kind of talk scares me, at least, off of unders or finishing potential. But the finishing potential, to your point, it is there. It's not like it's not there. It's more what you have faith on, folks. So if you have a stronger read, go for it. I'm certainly not trying to talk you off it. For my definitive pick, check out the main card, quick picks and prognostications that I do on Junkie, because this one looks like it'll be on the main card. Last fight there is Man on Fire, as she is called by some. Man on Fiaro, minus 205. Caitlin Chukagian, plus 175. There's some talk about this one in the chat, but I want your opinion on this one. I haven't gotten a chance to dig deep on this one. I have a couple tidbits where I'm looking at target, but what do you like here?
I like the up-and-comer Manon Ferriot in this one. I think she is. I think actually she's getting pushed at about the right pace. She's gonna to bring it back to earlier. I think this is a pretty good spot for her. Kind of the build in. This is her 4th, 5th UFC fight, something like that. I remember, it was Victoria Leonardo, Ricci, Myra Bueno Silva, Jennifer Maia, and now I think we're up. There's a more natural kind of build there, and every time she looks good. I like her volume. I like pretty much everything about her in this fight. I think she's going to be. They get into any clinch positions, she's going to be much stronger than Caitlin Chukagian, who, whenever I pick a Caitlin Chukagian fight, I have to remind people how good she is of a grappler, which is kind of how I did bet her against Gibas last time out. I thought she'd be able to get up, and it's not that this fight's going to be at the feet, and I think this is going to be a situation where I think Manon Ferriot is going to do more damage and throw more volume. I think Caitlin Chukagian, and it's hard to say, it's weird to say someone's going to throw more volume than Chukagian, because you get a lot of that, I'm not even going to do it, the high-pitched yelling kind of strikes that as DraftKings players you come to hate, because depending on who's working UFC stats or fight metric, you're just sitting there clicking the button, not the strike landed, and you're like, please stop. Just hitting air.
Yes. Yep.
So, I don't think the judges fall probably that's more of a just statistical issue. Fiora's going to be doing more damage, stronger strikes. I don't think there's going to be much in them. I think grappling-wise, I don't think Chukagian's going to be able to get the fight to the ground to utilize her submission skills. I would say the one thing I'm actually a little bit worried about is that Fiora's having success and starts feeling herself, feeling good, and shoots for a takedown.
Yep.
I actually don't want to see that. She does.
She does that.
Not that she can't go and win there, but I won't be shocked if Chukagian subs it. Like, I'm picking Fierro. The line, it's not one I want to bet either side of, but you telling me Chukagian wins the women's MMA armbar, I'm going to be like, yeah, Fierro made a mistake and took a shot and got a bet lesson. Not going to surprise me at all. But I think Fierro is more athletic. I think she's going to have more volume, more damage. She should win this fight. My pick is Manon Fierro by decision, and it's weird to say, but Chukagian's path to victory for me is a submission or just one of those, she's able to keep her distance and nothing happens and frustrates Fierro. I don't think that happens, but that is how Chukagian wins. If her footwork is even better than I think it is, which I do already think it's good. I like Fierro. I think she's a real deal prospect.
Nice. Yeah, I don't hate any of that there. I'm glad you mentioned the submission too, because I agree she is a good grappler, or a better grappler than given credit for. She would work off her back much more in the regional scenes, obviously. Smartly kind of got away from that. She doesn't really do it unless she needs to. But in those positions, she can scramble and work with the best of them. Even made Liz Carmouche have to work a lot. And she's a real lockdown fighter who really just sucks the life out of a fight when she can get on top, as we've seen Liz Carmouche do. I know she lost that fight, granted, but I'm just saying the skills, to your point, in her defense are there. Now, she couldn't make a fight when they were originally scheduled to fight earlier this month, and then it was a bit of a jump around. I think they even tried to get Fierro with Andrade, and now she's back with Chukagian, so I don't know who's more thrown off. You can speculate there, folks. I want to still go back and watch some tape, but the submission thing is interesting because I may throw that even just blindly now because I don't really want much involvement on this fight, even if I pick Fierro. But one thing I did notice, and I was worried about it more in the Bueno Silva fight because she's got a mean armbar, is that Fierro to reset herself by habit for whatever reason, and we've seen this with some strikers. I think it's a comfort thing, like which sounds crazy because you're like, well, shouldn't their comfort be on the feet? Like, yes and no. You get thrown out of position jumping back and forth in that karate style especially. You will mix in takedowns to reset yourself. We saw that with Justin Scoggins, a guy I was very high on. And you want to talk about fighters you thought were going to be like a champion and like were completely wrong. Like, I thought Scoggins was going to be the guy to challenge DJ back in the day. But as we saw, another in-and-out karate striker, Sean, you know where I'm going with this. I know you've been around, buddy. You know what's up. He couldn't stop himself from shooting into takedowns and getting guillotined, right? And again,
I was too busy thinking about the guy that I was so wrong on. That's Antonio Carlos Jr.
Oh yeah.
So sold he was a champion. I can't not think about him now.
Hey, that's not bad. That's not that bad. That's not as bad as mine, I will say so. In your defense there, but yeah, Fierro does that, man. And again, it's not crazy for me to say that if she's gonna her loss is gonna be by submission because most prospect losses are by submission, right? Even the men go. Conor McGregor's of the world, even these fast, crazy risers, right? You look at their stumbles, it's usually by submission, right? I mean, this is how it happens. You can 10x that when it comes to the women if we're going to play the stereotyping game. And I don't mean that as a negative. I'm just trying to be as accurate and critical as possible. This is the game we are playing, folks. And the women's armbar upset is always there, right? And Chukagian, I believe she's a black belt by now. She's got to be. She's been a brown belt for almost a decade. A Gracie or whatever, brown belt, whatever she is. But the point is she grapples. She's at the grappling-centric camps. I think they're laying a number out there that's like, what is it, like plus 2,600 or so we're seeing up on that. Like, I'll put $20 or maybe not even 20, 15 or $10 I don't want to see again at those odds just to get a couple units back for no sweat off my back, so to speak. Because Fierro's just asking for it. I know it's crazy. Chukagian can win as well, like Sean said, in a close decision. She's been sitting on her punches more. So we'll see what the judges like and ultimately what they see more. So yeah, this feels like a dog or pass spot. For me, I don't really want much involvement at all. But saying that, I will take me a crazy shot on a big plus number here as it pulls up. I'll let you guys go. Any last thoughts on this fight before we get to the prelims?
No, I think we're good. I don't want to think about Antonio Carlos Jr. anymore. I don't know how we got there, but it's just depressing.
It is.
So depressing.
All right, my stuff's taking forever to load, folks, so apologies. I'll update you on what number I get, and I'll recap at the end. But let's push to the prelims. I didn't do too much study except for one fight, which we'll talk about right meow. That is Sean Brady, minus 140. Bilal Muhammad, plus 120. Yeah, man. This is a fight where I like Brady. But you know what? I'm picking, and I ended up. It's going to be a sweat. You're asking to I'm going to have more gray hairs coming in by the end of this one because it's going to be a round 2 fight. It's going to come down to round 2. I think Brady wins round 1. I think Bilal wins round 3. Who wins round 2? I'm going to go with Bilal Muhammad to edge it out as the more active fighter. With his takedown defense, his wrestling base, and his improved versatile striking approach, he can either pressure or counter. Whereas Brady, I got to see more. What about you? Do you have any strong opinions on this fight?
I'm actually sold on Sean Brady. As much as I like Bilal Muhammad, and he's the kind of that typical kind of work pale fighter, a guy that I think the hardcore fans like. He does everything well. He can grapple. There's a joke on DraftKings. He's so consistent for the longer. He put up 5 or 6 fights scoring like 83 points. The exact, like, over and over again, he'd score 83, 80, which is not a great number. It's not a terrible one. He scored right in the middle. And it's just, that's kind of how I see his whole career. Frankly, I think he's had some good stylistic matchups in his rise. Like, Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, if you can get on top of them and Maia not get submitted, which heavy grapplers typically aren't, heavy wrestlers aren't going to, fine. You're going to be able to win those fights. Vicente Luque, if you can take damage, I know he lost to Vicente Luque early in his career, but if you don't get knocked out, you can, Bilal can drag people into deep water, which is what he's going to need to do against Sean Brady. But we've seen that with Luque before. You drag him late, you can take damage. The Brian Barberena fight. Like, I think he's had actually some good stylistic matchups, which good for him. I like Bilal. He's a good fighter. He's well-rounded. I think Sean Brady is better wrestler, and that's a problem for Bilal because Bilal, there's the whole thing. Social media day. You're pretty decent. You're pretty decent on the feet. I'm better than decent on the feet. No, I'm pretty. And the reporter repeated it. I was like, not wrong. You're okay on the feet. Like, I think breaking it down. I think Sean Brady is. I think they're equal on the feet. It's kind of the intangibles we're looking at with the wrestling. I think I'd give to Brady, and then the intangibles being the cardio. Can Bilal drag him to deep waters? Can kind of drown him that way. I actually think it's going to be a slower paced fight. I think Brady's aware of that. Bilal never fights fast anyway. I don't think Bilal pushed a fast enough pace to make Brady's issue an issue. We've seen in the past an issue here. It's very similar to me to Sean Brady, Jake Matthews. But I think Brady's going to keep improving and gotten better. I think he's definitely better in the Michael Chiesa fight. I don't think Bilal was enough for looking at Brady. I think his holes, funny, we talked about it last fight. Whereas the prospect holes, submissions. I'm worried at some point Sean Brady's going to get submitted along the way. I just don't think Bilal Muhammad can do it. So I think if he maintains his cardio correctly through 3 rounds, I think Sean Brady can actually sweep the scorecards. And unless Bilal lands some kind of big shot, I think Bilal needs to sit down on his punches more. His path to victory is getting in a boxing match and landing a big strike somehow, which is not something we've seen from Bilal, but I think should be his game plan going into this one. So official pick for me is, let me make sure I did do it by unanimous decision. I did. Sean Brady via unanimous decision.
Yeah, man, fight goes to the decision is probably chalked up, but I agree it's going to be a slower paced fight. And I agree with that Sean Brady thing. He's not as fervent or frantic as Oliveira, but he has that kind of hard wiring to always grapple for better or worse, like Oliveira, and that could get him into trouble for sure. But here's the thing: I also think that even though I do worry about Bilal not being a strong finisher or pushing the pace that you would want as a Bilal better, but I believe that even if he doesn't do that, I think Brady will meet him halfway and do it for him, because I still do think that Bilal is going to be the better striker, both coming forward and off the counter. He will also be putting out more numbers, which will run the risk of Brady losing the round, even if it's close and you think he shouldn't. He's a smart guy, and I think he's going to notice that. His corner is always also pushing for him to get the takedowns as well. They know where he's strong. And I do think that Bilal is the more trained wrestler. He comes from an actual wrestling base. But I do think that Brady is probably the better MMA wrestler, because, again, it's so embedded in his process. He's got certain things that he's hardwired to do that he does really well. So we are going to find that question out, right? My thing is, even if he is the better wrestler, by how much and for how long? And how hard is he going to have to do to prove that, right? Because this is one of those fights where he's either going to tire himself out. If he doesn't get the finish, that he's either going to tire himself out getting takedowns and then Bilal coming back up to his feet. And out Bilal's incredible takedown defense rating, maybe he just tires himself out trying to get the takedowns in general if he's not as good of a wrestler that many of us think that Brady is, right? Whether we're picking him or not, we agree with that analysis. So that's my big thing here as far as what we're going to find out. And Bilal Muhammad is an excellent game planner, you're not wrong as far as the matchups that he got at the time he got those. I could totally see that math making sense. Totally. I'm not disagreeing with it. But we also still got to give credit where credit's due, which is the fact that Bilal beautifully game planned and executed it. Doing one thing is hard enough to ask or expect of a fighter in MMA, as crazy as that sounds. So when a guy can do both, he's not going to get a lot of credit for it. It's not the sexiest thing. He's not out there producing highlight reels, but it's a really good skill. And I think Brady, as good as he is and as good as he could be, he is not the hardest guy to game plan for. And I feel like there's been almost maybe arguable regressions. Now, that camp is kicking butt. We're seeing guys like Jeremiah Wells come from there. But maybe it's Jeremiah Wells hitting him hard in practice. Maybe it's a step up in competition. But his striking looks like not. It looks like it's less effective as it's gone on. Now he's facing better competition. And you've got weird style matchups like tall, rangy southpaw Chiesa in there, right? Who's not a noted striker, granted. But, again, you got different looks. I get it. I'm not trying to condemn the guy here. But that is something to look at, because it's something that I would want to see, if anything, progression, not stagnation or even arguable regression. He also came into the UFC with his cardio touted, and we didn't see that. In fact, that was a reason why that I kind of took a shot against him, against Court McGee, who, boy, you look back at McGee, this was before he upgraded whatever he upgraded in his strength and conditioning. It's like, McGee, could you have made those upgrades back then? That was within reach. That was closer than many of us thought. And we've seen him kind of tire down there. And if you go look at the stats, because I wanted to, like Dillashaw, I wanted to see not just the times he was taken down, which was just kind of a cheeky Uchimata in round 3 when he was already tiring against Chiesa. But you got to go back early in his career against McGee, and even that one against Nardiev, which I didn't even see it. I watched that round 2 twice. I didn't see I don't know what they're counting as a takedown attempt there. The point is, people haven't really tried to take this guy down that much. So we don't know. That's the thing. So it's hard for anyone to be confident either way. So I'm definitely not telling anybody to follow me off my cliff. But Bilal, to me, is the more proven guy. I'm going to get him at plus money. He opened as the favorite. I don't think he should have opened that high. Props to you if you took Brady at plus money, okay? That being said, I feel like I don't even need to make this argument. When you've got a favorite who opened as a favorite as a dog and you think he should be the favorite, well, then go and bet him. I threw a unit on it myself, so that's all I'll say on that. All right, pushing on here. Real quick, Mark Fellows, my guy Mark. I want to shout the chat real quick. Hi, Dan. Long time, first time. Yeah, right. As an active fighter these days, are you permitted to gamble? Come on. We know that's meant for UFC fighters. That does suck, though, man.
That's still funny.
That was funny. That is funny. No. Thankfully, I'm still permitted to. I wonder if they would crack down on that, though, for, like, it is interesting because, again, professionalism, right? Like, I feel for the fighters, and it sucks. But so I'm not going to get sidetracked with that conversation. But I will say, as far as media and whatnot, it does feel kind of weird. Like, you see a bunch of journalists who cover the sport, like, doing betting stuff now, right? Now, for me, I'm an independent contractor like the fighters. I'm an analyst. I'm not a journalist. I'm not traditional media, folks. So this is my job. This is what I do. Gambling is what I do, and I actually, So, anyways, I get it. It's kind of a tricky thing, and I hope they don't come for me, man. I hope they don't come for my weapons. but yeah,
He had some trouble.
that was that's crap. At least they're letting them still do their betting sponsorships, I guess, for what that's worth. All right, I'll get back to the chat in a second. Let's push through the rest of this here. We're almost to the finish line. Thank you for being with me. Follow my guy at @sniper_MMA. You can follow me at DanTomMMA. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We got Kyle Bohio -205, Mahmoud, who is it me or did he do some Dakota Cochran side gigs there? For those who know that joke, Mahmoud Muradov +175 there. Any opinions on this fight? I'm picking the favorite, but I'm not inclined to get involved with this fight. That's all I'll say. Any opinions here, Sean?
Yeah, I also like Kyle Bahio. Muradov's good. It's one of those. I just think Kyle Bahio is better, explosive, much more explosive. I think he's going to actually get a finish here. I just think the line would be a little bit wider if he obviously didn't get. Muradov last time out got finished against Mearshart. I actually think the fight should be a little bit closer. I flipped in my head. If we just didn't see that, I think the line is too wide, but I'm not inclined to pick Muradov. I still want Kyle Bahio. It's weird with a loss against Gerald Mearshart. Gerald Mearshart's legit. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. Give him Kyle, who's got a weird. The question was, Kyle's grappling. Can he use his grappling to win a fight? I think he can. He had his 2 UFC fights though are Gadzi Omar Kazayev, whose name you have to say again, which is awful, and who is fighting down a division, should be, because Kyle was giant in that fight, and Armin Petrosian, who's a striker. Muradov is more well-rounded, and I think Kyle is still going to be strong enough and enough grappler to get it down there, but definitely his biggest test so far. I wanted to bet Kyle, and then I looked at the line and went, no thanks, pass. So that's where I am in this fight.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I haven't researched it myself, so I'm going to hold back any hard takes. But that sounds about right. I'll be picking Bohio. But again, just to make sure, always go to my Twitter at DanTomMMA on Fight Day. I always post all my picks and plays there, and hopefully they're not too bad. We've been doing okay. All right, next fight we got Nikita Krylov -175, Volkan Oezdemir +150. Did they get the line right? Do you have any strong opinions on this one, Sean?
No, line's not right. Oezdemir, I think, is one of the dogs that will be barking on this card. He's one of my dog plays. He is, I think his dog, a bunch of people are on, which is a little concerning. Vegas wasn't built by all his people being right. But I don't think that Nikita Krylov is going to finish him on the feet. I think Krylov has knockout power, but he doesn't have Yuri Prohaska knockout power. I think that we saw an evolution in Volkan last time out. I know it was Paul Craig rolling for legs, but that actually showed me I liked. Volkan had gotten emotional in some fights. I didn't like his demeanor in some fights. I know he's the whole no time and the outside of fights, kind of get that very stoic kind of demeanor. I felt like in fights he would get frustrated, and I liked his Paul Craig. He just did what he had to do, took the decision win, knew where he was better, and kind of fought within himself. And I think against Krylov, another kind of aging fighter, he looked great last time against Alexander Gustafsson. Alexander Gustafsson is, the ghost of Alexander Gustafsson. All these guys in this weight class are getting older, and you just saw it. When I think of Nikita Krylov, one of the first fights that comes to mind is Misha Serkinov.
Oh yeah.
They're kind of from the same era. Time is undefeated, guys, and it's a factor you have to look at here. I probably would have leaned towards Oezdemir anyway because I think he's just more technical, and Nikita Krylov's a knockout puncher. I'm going to go with the technical guy in this fight. I won't spend 10 minutes on this one, but I think Oezdemir is going to have his way in the feet. I'm not expecting the finish. I have Oezdemir via decision.
All right. Yeah, I think he's live in the sense that this is a volatile fight. The line kind of surprised me in a sense because I don't necessarily think too highly of Krylov either, but he is admittedly the person I am leaning, even though I was wrong with the Paul Craig flyer there for him to get it done. And Oezdemir did win, rightfully so. he still had some moments where it was like if Paul Craig didn't make bigger brain fart moments, so to speak, and I love Paul Craig, I mean that with all respect, but if he didn't make the bigger questionable head scratchers, it would have been more obvious. But yeah, if you're being critical, there were some decisions there that I still didn't like from Uzdemir. So I have a hard time trusting him. I don't blame people taking a shot. It feels like a fight where there's a live dog. Again, peep my at Dan Tom MMA on Twitter to see where I end up on that one. No hard take here. Real quick before we push on to the rest, I just want to get a general question and a touch up on the last one. Rain Lamina, Jack Slack said that Gamrot has good straight punches and boxes into the clinch well, and is good at initiating and dictating exchanges. Jack Slack's the man. So if he said it, I'm sure that's not too far off from truth. I wish I could comment on that more. We also got a general question from Rio Sozen Trusdale. General question, Dan. Are past performances of a promise of future for fighters? What if they make adjustments in camp? Must we factor in there? And to parlay with that, he says a question about past performances indicator. Bilal versus Luke A2 is not a good example of a fighter making adjustments. It is. Yeah, you always got to leave the door open for a fighter potentially doing that. And, maybe Uzdemir or Krylov surprises us with something with the matchup we're talking about now. But I don't, neither guy, despite where you guys see my pick, believe me, I can almost guarantee you now that I won't be too confident in either one of them for that reason. But we do have to leave the door open. It could happen, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's fighter progression and rematches. I've gone on spiels on other podcasts in the past. Are two different things to me. Fighter progression you have to figure out, and regression. Are they what skills they're learning, what camp are they at, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's a whole different. You kind of covered it well, and I won't go further into that. It's kind of extrapolation, a little bit of guesswork in terms of handicapping. It becomes kind of like the science. You predict rematches, though. You spent Luke A2, Muhammad 2 rematch. I love exploiting rematches in terms of the books. It is my favorite thing to do. I'll rattle off a couple because rematches. MMA is so volatile. People get locked in a certain thing, and it's a volatile sport to begin with. And the recent reaction is and you call it correction, but it's just the nature of rematches. Sterling doesn't blow his load, looks much better. Oliveira, Tim Means, in which Tim Means was, I think, there was no contest or disqualified in the first fight, and they rematched. Everybody was all over Tim Means. I'm like, did you watch the first fight? Oliveira beat the crap out of him in the first round.
Right.
And Oliveira was a big dog.
Right.
It's one of those, and then Luke Gay Muhammad you just mentioned. Well, it's a knockout shot. If he doesn't get knocked out, is he going to grind it? Like, people, just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
Right.
Especially in this volatile past game we are.
Yes.
So volatile.
Yes, well said. And you know what? Speaking of volatility, and as Dan Hamilton in the chat said, fighters that'll make you clench your butt cheeks betting on. I think this is another fight where the dog is live because it's another volatile fight. You got Zubaira Tukhugov minus 165 versus Lucas Almeida plus 140. I also believe this is a fight where the line flips, so you really don't have to justify much if you want to take a shot on the now dog Almeida. I don't have a pick for this fight. Again, peep at Dan Tom MMA later for what I end up on. Do you have any strong takes on this one, Sean?
I do, and I'll get less strong as we go on, but this one is stylistic. Almeida's a crazy person.
Yep.
He's that Brazilian go forward. Tukhugov is a guy with crazy power who typically in the past has had trouble pulling the trigger. But when you fight a guy with Almeida, he's gonna, that counter style he wants to play is gonna play. I think if Almeida comes out like he normally does, Tukhugov knocks him out. Like I think that's probably the most likely outcome. I think is Tukhugov be a knockout. I will say that because Almeida is a crazy person, he's going to come in with a lot of volume. He could absolutely clip Almeida. Clip Tukhugov. I just stylistically, I like for Tukhugov that Almeida's going to bring the fight and make him. His volume went up a little bit last fight, but his volume's going to be forced to go up in this fight. So I like Tukhugov. I think the line is. This is about where I would line it now, and I got Tukhugov closer to. Pick him minus 125, 130, I think is where I grabbed it. Not for a huge amount, though. because it's a it's a really volatile fight.
Sure, I lean toward Tugov, but I can't give any too crazy thoughts on that. Rio says in Truesdale, thoughts on John Anik's sweaty armpits at the face-offs today. Listen, I am a sweaty bastard. I am the last person to talk. I am that sweaty guy, so I cannot talk crap. Especially about Anik.
Church, John. Come on. You know, I was supposed to go on Anik's podcast right before they kind of changed the format and stopped having cappers and all that.
Aww.
I wish I could have given that. I wish I could have given him that advice face to face. Dark shirts.
I hope they get you on, man. I would advocate for you to be on that show. But yeah, no, they did change format, I believe. But shouts to my guy, Big Gun Brian Petrie, by the way. He's been killing it there. We got Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus minus 165 versus Gadzi Omar Gadzhiev plus 140. All admission, I didn't research this fight yet, but I probably won't be getting involved. But I'd probably be picking Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Of course, I cashed fading Gadzi Omar Gadzhiev. You know, it's real easy to get. Don't get me wrong. If you're gonna throw darts at Russians, you're gonna win more times than not. But like I always tell people, don't get too excited when you got the OVs or any of these names. You know, they sound Russian and they're not, like the Amadovskis, or if they're like, Gamzatov, who really is Shamzatov, right? Am I right? Or Gadzimurad Antigulov, who has like the Russian Jordan Wright. He's got like a one-round burst and he's done. So you got to be able to spot the fraudulent Russians. And no offense, but I get that vibe from Gadzi Omar Gadzhiev. Any vibes or reads on this fight?
On that, Abubakar Nurmagomedov is build a stereotypical. You know how you made the joke at the video game character, the video game MMA base default character. Looks wise, if you could build like all the medium Russian fighter characteristics, that's Abubakar.
Yes, yeah.
Fine.
Yes.
He's the boilerplate UFC Russian fighter, and I think that's going to be enough against Omar Gadzhiev, whose name I don't want to say anymore. Help me out, bro.
Which name for Abubakar's?
Gadzi Abu Gadzhiev.
Oh, Omar Gadzhiev. Omar Gadzhiev, yeah. Gadzi Omar Gadzhiev. I know it's tough. It's a tough one.
But I'd rather Russian names than Portuguese names. They make me. I can't do it. It's bad.
It's okay, man. They're not. They ain't easy. That's for sure. They ain't easy. But yeah, no. I agree with you. That is funny. Abubakar has a lot of the stereotypical descriptors, if you will. All right, we're going to push forward. This fight is another fight where I feel like there's a live dog here. I don't know how popular of a dog he is, but you got AJ Dobson as your underdog plus 175. Armen Petrosyan minus 205. I haven't looked into this fight too closely, although I listened to an interview with AJ Dobson, and I like this kid a lot. I'll be happy if he wins. I don't know if I'm going to pick him because I'm leaning toward Petrosyan to win, the favorite, but no crazy takes or involvement here as of yet. Anything for you, Sean?
I have the crazy sprinkle on this one. AJ Dobson, round 1 KO. I like AJ Dobson. I like the way they bring them around. I get why he's a dog. It makes sense. Petrosyan is a more seasoned striker. I think Dobson's going to make this a brawl, and I just like him in that scenario. So it's odd that a justifiable dog, but one where if he wins, his ceiling is huge. I think he can get a quick finish. I like him in DraftKings on tournaments for those reasons. Tournaments are those large contests we see 100K up top. You want quick finishes you can get, especially down price 7.1K on DraftKings. If he wins, he's going to put up a big old number. So I like my sprinkle on AJ Dobson.
And Petrosyan has been stopped in the first round, albeit on the regional scenes. It can happen, right? My guy goes Phantom. Yep. Dan, we both know what good striking looks like. Why are people pretending that Manon Fiorot has good striking? My guy goes Phantom shouting over here that she's overrated. And I get that kind of a sense, too. Again, I got to go back and refresh, but those are the vibes that I got in case...
I disagree.
Yeah, you think so?
I like the athleticism. I like the aggression. Do I think there's room for improvement? Sure. But and some about her, man. Maybe it's Cyril Gahn. Maybe the whole Frenchwoman thing's got me all tripping. I just think the French are the wave of the future.
I gotta rewatch it because you know me, I'm a defender of that karate hut touch striking, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely not a hater. I gotta rewatch, but there are some empty. It looks good. We got to see it proven. We got to see it But yeah, I'm real curious to see where I end up on too. I mean, well, you guys already know where my bet's at. It's going to be on Chukagian, as that number probably is still trying to load for me. But all right, back on track here. Back on track. I don't blame anybody, by the way, going for Dobson. See where I end up, where I end up there. Maybe you take a flyer round one, Dobson, right? Regardless of who you pick, because that's a very, very possible outcome here, folks. We've got, speaking of possible outcomes, Muhammad Mokaev minus 1150, Malcolm Gordon plus 750. Obviously, I don't disagree with who the favorite is. These lines are obviously crazy in a volatile sport of MMA, but even with the crazy line, even with liking a guy like Malcolm Gordon, I'll be happy if he wins. I won't be taking a shot or picking him. I'll be picking Mokaev here. How about yourself, Sean?
Yeah, Mokaev by however he wants. I will say Malcolm Gordon looked good last time out. I was happy for him. He's the type of guy. What really worries me about him is he doesn't look like he likes to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
His first two fights, he would get hit and immediately it looked like he didn't want to be there anymore. Like, oh, that's for him. I'm glad he turned it around last fight.
Me too.
This is a bad match. Mokaev is a real prospect, and we have to see how the UFC chooses to bring him along, how he gets brought along. But he's for real. Been impressed with him.
Yep, I don't disagree with that. Lastly, but not leastly, we got Carol Hosup minus 325 versus Lena Landsbergen plus 270. Sorry, I gotta say her name with the fucked up way. Yeah, no letdown spot keeping me away from Hosa here. I don't blame anybody for using this as a parlay piece. I don't know. I don't think you can get plus money. You probably get close to even money if you parlay Rosa and Jan. I'm not saying to do it. I'm not saying I will. I've been staying away from parlays and have been better off for it when I do, and been getting burned the few times I haven't. So I'm not excited about parlay talk, but I try to mention it because I know a lot of parlay players watch the show, whether from a betting perspective, a fantasy perspective. What's your thoughts on this fight, Sean?
I can't believe you just said that because I actually have Rosa and Jan. Remember earlier I said I was going to put Jan in the parlay?
Okay, there we go. No. I'm wishing you. That's the smart play. It's the smart play. I'm so superstitious on parlays. I'm scared of them. I'm scared. It's the smart one. I'm scared.
That you loaded. I was like, yeah. Remember earlier I mentioned Jan in the parlay. Oh, the second half is Rosa. Rosa is one of those. If she's better somewhere, she's going to. It's weird. I think all of her fights have played out the way I expect them to. Procopio got a little bit closer than I thought, but she did whatever she wanted to. Vanessa Mello, she could take down Jocelyn Edwards, outstruck Betch Kohei. She can path of least resistance. She's a fighter who's able to take it. Sarah McMahon is a better grappler and didn't get submitted in round 2. Well, you're going to lose that fight. Sarah McMahon didn't give you her neck. Sorry. It's just somehow you lost that lottery. Everybody seems to win. In this fight, Lansford, she's a fine striker, but I think it'd be a close fight. I don't see how Carol Rosa doesn't go, I'm going to take you down and do whatever I want to you. It's kind of how I see this fight. If Yana Kunitskaya is taking you down 5 times, Carol Rosa is going to take you down a few. And I think I believe in Carol Rosa because she's shown she's willing to path of least resistance. That's clearly a phrase that was in my notes, and I'll say it twice. I like Carol Rosa via decision. Yeah,
minus 140, what Dan Hamilton posted in the chat. Anything around that, by the way, anything under minus 150, I don't hate that as a play straight up. You know what I'm saying? Kind of layer your profits or, hedge out potentially in case.
That's crazy. Via decision or straight up?
You just said Rosa decision minus 140. I didn't have time to check his work.
Okay, yeah. I think straight up she's like minus 220-ish.
No, I'm just saying bet the decision prop straight up in case you've got her in a parlay. That way you either 2x your profits there, or let's say you parlayed her to something that unfortunately fails later in the night. Whatever you decide doing, folks. At least you can take away, a little more secure leg. That's what I like to do with parlays anyways. If I have parlay pieces, I like dual ones where it's like, especially if they're going to win by a certain way, I might load up on that to try to cover the exposure to the parlay or as a potential bonus, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yep.
And this is one of those places where I think you could get away with get away with doing that. Whereas the Jan one, I think he's a sturdy parlay leg, but trying to pick a method gets a little tricky, right? With Jan, which round is it decision? Is it inside? Which round? Then you can get into the weeds and get dangerous despite being on the right side there. So very interesting. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup on the chat. I know it was a bit of a long show, but due to some injuries like my shoulder, like someone asked about, and some other things that I don't want to give away because in case anybody I'm fighting is listening to this. But yeah, I'll say this, folks. Wish your boy well here. Again, I'm doing fine. I don't need any charity or anything like that. I'm very grateful for my lot in life. What I mean is that I'm going with a touch and go injury, right? We all deal with a bunch of injuries. All these fighters do who are competing, and I'm definitely feeling that share. But I sustained something this week that may or may not, we're going to be touch and go, may or may not make the decision for my hard-headed ass. And it wasn't that cut that I was showing off, which, by the way, I can attest, getting blood in your eye and bleeding in your eyeball, it burns. It sucks. So, no, I'm not talking about that. That's healing actually pretty fast here, even though I still look kind of lazy-eyed a bit. But yeah, someone asked if I was allergic to Kimuras. Yeah, I will tap very fast on those, folks. As far as that goes, to clarify,
second somebody threw their legs up, I was like, I'm done. No thanks.
Yeah, my shoulder sucks, man, and it sucks for wrestling. You really need those to wrestle, Ghost Phantom, to clarify about Menon, from my film study, all she does is open stance matchup, is the lead leg sidekick from the inside angle and right hook from the outside angle, and spams those two. She definitely does spam those a lot. Man, I wish I could give you some more of my thoughts here. I don't have strong any two ways, and these are two strikers who get a lot of criticism, Chukagian or Fiorot, and I usually find myself defending them, but I want to make sure I come correct with my information. He adds that she doesn't parlay the foundation of those weapons, she just repeats the same exchange. Yeah, we'll see if she's made any growth. Again, she may not be super young, but she is younger in her MMA career, so we got to see about any of those. And yeah, it's definitely no disrespect, Ghost Phantom. It's just what you see on film, and I appreciate you sharing that. Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Some of yours I was kind of jumping around the chat here. I did want to shout to one question, my guy, James Kendrick. He asked about bodywork earlier and why me and Jack Slack and others are so big on it. We love it. It's an unsung hero. A lot of fighters will tell you that too, that they would rather give their head when they get hit to the liver for a reason, because it just makes you miserable. He also says, why is Esparza so afraid to fight Wei Li on this card? Seems like a fair venue, even though it is not a fair fight considering Wei Li's advantages. Again, I'd always be careful using the word afraid with fighters. That being said, you know what? I know it's not the same as far as, like, it's not Wei Li's second home like it is Islam's, So I'm much more sympathetic to Oliveira not wanting this fight, and we should all be giving much more props to Oliveira, taking it in enemy territory. But I think it was more Carla's wedding, the quick turnaround, the fact that the challenger is calling the shot. And yeah, it's a tough matchup. I think Carla obviously knows that, folks. And you know what? Are you really going to blame her for being like, listen, this is not favoring me. I know what everybody's thinking. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this on my time. I think it was more just that attitude. And you know what? Good for her. So I'm definitely not hating on Carla. The GOAT who dominated Rose. Never in doubt. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Getting married. She's not holding up a division. Like, there's people are giant fans of, all kinds of crazy dicks stuck in, like you were demonstrating earlier, for whatever reason. I didn't know what show I was on.
Yeah.
But there are people who hold up a division way longer and people are yelling for fans for. Carla's taking a fight 6 months after she won a title. That's totally reasonable. Totally reasonable. The fight she won in May, she's getting a fight in November. I don't know where all this Carla hate came from just because she beat Rose decisively.
Yep, absolutely. You're right, man. Yeah, people forget those things. I appreciate the love from the chat. Dan Hamilton says he's had 2 rotator cuff repairs. Oh, brother, that's not fun. They are definitely not fun to go through. At this point, I just want to stay healthy and not lose this momentum. It's tough because I got offered a fight at possibly maybe up a weight, and I don't want to go up a weight. I'm on my way down. This is the weight I should be at, folks. This is where I should be finally. and I don't want to lose momentum. Kind of like what Sniper was saying, Sean was saying earlier with his jiu-jitsu journey. Like, as you get older, especially when you have like real responsibilities like family and stuff, like, which is a real thing. I don't have kids of my own, but I do have family members that I help take care of. So I very much sentiment with what you said there, Sean, and it's something that I think we all need to realize. To be healthy, be grateful for our own health, and not take for granted. I know we're betting and we talk our smack here. Me and Sean, we're breaking down these fights for you guys. But at the end of the day, we're very appreciative of all these fighters give. So thank you guys for keeping that energy. The Alvin Yakatoris of the world, everybody else in the chat. We're running long here. Even though I can't spar tonight, so I'm not running late. I'm just trying to be conscientious to your time and my guest's time. So I want to thank you guys all, and I want to throw it back to my guest, Sean, as I thank you, sir, for joining me and getting you onto the show here. Is there anything you want to add for any of these fights, any plays, anything you want to recap, anything you want to plug, sir? Floor is yours.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start with the plug, and I got a couple extra thoughts I'll throw in at the end. I got nothing else. I thought you were on a time crunch. I didn't realize till halfway through the episode we talked before. I thought you were gonna have to jump on me, but I'm glad we were able to
we're good.
Talk fights. A lot of the stuff I'm doing, pretty much I'm gonna start ramping up my YouTube channel a little bit more. I think the YouTube channel is Sniper MMA _. Some weird stuff was taken, but follow me on Twitter. The link's there. Sniper _MMA. I'm trying to do. So I do a weekly fantasy fight breakdown. I'm going to start doing some stuff with Verdict on a weekly basis, and actually just those guys I mentioned in the beginning, RBQs and Magic Mike, we're starting a podcast on Sundays where we just kind of talk about not just these breakdown shows. We're going to just talk MMA. The guys who like to talk MMA, we're going to talk at night probably. We'll probably have football games on the side, but we're going to do that. We're starting a new podcast this week. We're going to call it The Shadow Realm. That's going to start Sunday night. That'll be on my YouTube channel, so if you guys can check that out. That's what I'm excited about right now. So appreciate all that. Thank you very much for having me on. This is always, I do the same thing you do, where I try not to listen to too many other people's stuff because I don't want to cloud my own judgment. But this is in my short list of stuff. I listen after I'm done.
Oh man, that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
And I'm like, okay, where can I be rethinking, making last second tweaks? We met up once at the UFC.
We did.
Just to talk more and actually probably pick your brain more in general, how to get more involved in this MMA space. But that's probably not a conversation. Let's do it.
Hit me up anytime, bro.
For this card, get back on track. Some other plays thinking about, there's a lot of juice on it. I've seen Muhammad Makayev via round one finish is like minus 250. Even though it's crazy, I think it's a viable parlay piece.
Sure.
I'm really interested in the Peter Yan bet we talked about, and there's one more I wanted to bring up. Oh God, I gotta find it. We see the pass Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov a little bit. I'm watching his line. I've actually last time I saw there was some movement on the Gaji side.
Ooh.
If Abu Bakr gets to a bettable number.
Yeah.
To a bettable number.
Like minus 150 or lower.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one of the ones I have alert for. So
yeah, I don't blame you. Look at you, alerts and everything. My man's a pro over here. I love those tidbits, and I don't disagree with that at all. As per usual. Or you don't know any more plays you want to read off? Please go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
That's it. That's kind of. Oh, and any DraftKings fan advice. Typically, I mentioned MMA Play 365 in the beginning. I try to be a little bit tight-lipped in terms of people sliding into my DMs, because otherwise, why do I have a service? But for this week, mention you saw me on Protect Your Neck. Any questions you got? DraftKings, FanDuel, any of that stuff, hit me up. We'll get you squared away. I want to get more people involved in that space. So that's it. That's what I got this week.
Awesome. The only shot I forgot at the top of the show, and I actually forgot the drink because, not just because it helps to shout, but, it's amazing drinks, and I could use it right now. For the injuries, and that, of course, is my man, D Loves Turmeric Tonic. You can follow him, D Loves _ turmeric _ tonic. And if you want to order some of the turmeric tonic, that's amazing. It's just like turmeric, ginger, and lemon, but he literally gets the blend perfect. And I've never had a blend this simple and perfect. It's theturmeric.com, and I may have an exclusive savings price for you. It's going to be Protect 15 when we get it going. So Yes, baby. I appreciate it. I love supporting small businesses. I love the listeners supporting me, but I also love being able to give that support right back too. So I appreciate that. If you want to support my guy D Love, again, you could find him there. I know last week I told you guys to follow my guy Asan_striking. Of course, that's my guy, my striking coach there. I want you guys to follow Gil Guardado, MMA, I believe. Just type in Gil Guardado, Guardado, and on Twitter or Instagram there, and follow his accounts. He posts excellent strength and conditioning stuff. That's my strength and conditioning coach. So I really want to pay that love forward. But if you want to pay the love forward to me, this is a free show that is, of course, hosted by my website, mixedmartialanalyst.com, where you can find on it an Amazon click-throughs. I'll probably do an Amazon read the click-throughs for the recap show. I'm going to be doing a recap. My girl got us tickets to a music festival. It's like when we were young. It's all like the mid-aught pop punk AFI and stuff, so I'm going to be reliving my youth. So I'm actually happy it's a daytime show. I think I can knock out this card before the bands I want to see start, but needless to say, I will be out and about, hopefully as much as my injuries will allow me to, and which means I won't be doing a recap until Sunday. And that'll be, of course, on the YouTube channel. So audio listeners, again, Daniel Tom MMA. Like and subscribe to this video if you're watching now or in the future and haven't already. And of course, 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts is appreciated. You could follow the Protect Your Neck podcast on all social platforms at the PYN podcast. Follow, subscribe. I promise I don't put out that much, so I can't pollute your feeds even if I wanted to, and I don't want to, believe me. But these are ways you can support. Of course, on mixedmartialanalyst.com or at DanTomMMA, where you can see and follow me. Here on the screen, I got my link tree, which has a secure PayPal link that is also at mixedmartialanalyst.com if you want to make a straight-up donation to the show. Sorry for the long-winded recap, but now, what you guys are waiting for, and some of you fast-forward through, which you're not giving me the watch hours on YouTube, and I'm really close to monetizing, so appreciate the watch hours, but I will recap here. So, this is my picks, by the way. This is don't if you hear something that's crazy, attack me. Don't attack Sean. These are my picks. I am taking Slim Charles, baby. You know that's right. The Wire references are back. It's gonna be Slim Charles all day, baby. The game ain't changed. It just got more fierce. Think about the old days is data old days. That's right. Slim Charles, baby. Taking him over Makhachev. We'll see. Obviously, Makhachev's a great fighter. And respect to you guys if you are on the opposite side there. I am taking in the co-main event. I'm taking Dillashaw. I know. Why? Why am I going against my guy Aljo? Throw fruit at me if you will. I'll be rooting for Aljo and guys like my guy Sean who are picking him, or if you're playing him, good for you. But I actually ended up kicking for coverage with Dillashaw. But yeah, taking Dillashaw, taking Jan over O'Malley, or as I should say, Ziggy. Speaking of The Wire, right? Because Zig, who was in the remake of It, I didn't realize, by the way. But yeah, the actor who plays Ziggy Sabatka looks just like Sean O'Malley. So we'll see. We'll see if, Malaka, we'll see if the Russian guy, who actually kind of looks like Peter Yan from The Wire, he actually wanted to kick the guy who looks like O'Malley's ass. But now we get to see the real-life version on pay-per-view, baby. I'm going to take Yan. I don't know who I'm going to take in Dariush or Gamrot. So reserve the right. Apologize. Leaning toward Fiorot as the favorite, but I'm probably playing Chuk by sub regardless of what I pick. Again, you got to check me on Fight Day for that pick. Taking Muhammad over Brady. Love Brady. Just taking my shot on Muhammad. No disrespect. Taking Bohaya over Mahmoud, baby. Dakota Cochran's second coming, possibly. I don't know. Someone want to fill me in on that gossip? No pictures, please. No pictures. But taking Bohaya over Muradov. I'm leaning Krylov over Uzdemir. We'll see where I end up there. He's a live dog. So is Almeida as a live dog, but I am leaning to Hugov as of right now. More than likely taking Nurmagomedov. It's more that if he gets down to bettable favorite territory, then I may have to debate on whether adding that money line or a prop play for around the same price of Hossa by decision will get there. So far, I'm leaning Petrosian over Dobson, but that may change, folks. And even if I pick Petrosian, ain't no way I'm playing him. This is a dog or pass territory there, in my opinion. Taking Makayev over Gordon And again, yes, taking Rosa over Lena Landsbergen plays. I ended up taking Dubronx. Unfortunately, I didn't get him at the disrespectful odds way out in advance when people were having Islam over 3-1 favorite. But I got Dubronx at 2.5. I wanted to lay 3 units, but I didn't want to get too crazy with exposure. I can always go back and add more if the price gets better, which I want to leave the door open for. But yeah, 2.5 units on Dubronx, money line, kick for coverage, plus 168. I did put a unit on Dubronx submission, plus 300. I got 1 unit on Dillashaw at the plus 155, plus 150 neighborhood for 1 unit. I did sprinkle, that's right, load the clip, 0.17 unit shots. Dillashaw rounds 4 and 5, 2,500 to 3,000, except for in one house where I did the method rounds 4 and 5 by KO for 3,000 to 3,500. Again, small sprinkles for a big return. All Dog City, baby. We'll see. That's another reason why I'm a little hesitant on pulling the trigger on chalk, because I also am exposed on Muhammad. 1 unit money line, kicking for coverage, not playing anything else, not playing any more exposure. I'm more than exposed for what's going to be a very sweaty fight. The only other dog I would be looking to target, and again, I would only put a unit and I would only kick for coverage. Rooting for you if you're playing the sub like my guy Sean here, because I'm rooting for Dariush. Might be Dariush. I still have to go look at a couple fights before I make a decision. But those are the dogs I'm targeting. Essentially, my night could be riding or dying on Dubronx, which is fine. It's not often I get a organic analysis thing like that to happen, so I'm going to go for it. And my plan is essentially to be able to win enough money before Dubronx happens and is heavily exposed. Ideally, I have a winning night regardless if I eat S in the main event. So that's kind of how I want to have it balanced, if that makes sense. And plus money is a good way to get there. So if I'm on anything else, I'll let you know. Wait, let's see. One last thing. Caitlin Chukagian by submission. Oh, Peter Yan, round 3 plus 1,000 by KO, or round 3 plus 900, $20 I didn't want to see again. I did fire on that, folks, live on the show. And Chukagian, if it's plus 2,600, I'm probably going to put a 0.17U or 0.20 ducats, regardless. And that is it. Wow, yeah, that's all I got. Stay tuned at Dan Tom MMA to see what I got. Follow my guy Sean at sniper_MMA. Thanks, Sean, again, man, for sticking around. I know we ran long. You were amazing. I appreciate you, sir. I know we're on the opposite of some, but just like my listeners, man, I wish you nothing but the best. There's no reason why we got to kill each other. Let's play against the bookies, and let's all take home some money, hopefully, huh?
There's enough money for all of us to go around. As long as I take something down in DraftKings, I'm good. Thank you again for having me. I really, really appreciate. I'm a fantasy guy, so I appreciate you bringing me in, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and all you fantasy players, you have another person to follow right here. Good luck on your picks and plays, folks, and always protect your neck.